4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
From the Play Show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor at 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Friday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all of our great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and, of course, streaming on YouTube. 855-212-4CBS, number to jump on in, 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on the good old cesspool of Twitter, at Zach Gelb, or on Instagram, I'm always trade flexing, at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB. I kind of lied there right off the bat. I am not in the New York City studios today. I'm actually on the road in Philadelphia from our 94 WIP Odyssey studios. And something that's going to be very tough throughout this show is adjacent to me is the Tasty Cake wall. So their studios are sponsored by Tasty Cake, and they have an entire wall with shelves and shelves and shelves of Tasty Cakes on it. And I've set the over-under at 3.5 trips for the big fella to the Tasty Cake wall before we do say goodbye to you on this Football Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. I have Michael Samter and Stuart Kovacs back in our New York City studios. If I may say so myself, by the way, Moist Mike, these Tasty Cakes are very moist, and I've already made one trip to the wall. As you can see if you're listening on the stream, there is the empty wrapper from what was a very delicious peanut butter candy cake, which was 3 little round tasty cakes, and they were absolutely phenomenal. So throughout the duration of the show, I do have my high-quality H2O, and I have a lot of tasty cakes that are on standby, so looking forward to that. Andrei Iosivas will join us from the Cincinnati Bengals. The rookie wide receiver has found the end zone a few times, found his first NFL touchdown on his birthday from Joe Burrow, which was pretty cool a few weeks back. He'll join us at 4:20 p.m. Eastern today to preview that big game this weekend on Sunday Night Football on NBC as the Bengals do host the Buffalo Bills. And then at 5:20 p.m. Eastern, 2:20 p.m. Pacific, we'll do our weekly pick spot, college football, NFL, with Ryan Horvat from BetMGM tonight and also via BetQL. And a monster weekend in the NFL with the Chiefs and Dolphins playing in Germany. You have the Cowboys going to Philadelphia, where I'm at right now. I'm not staying for the game, but they will be playing the Eagles, as that's a heavyweight NFC East showdown. And then it wraps up on Sunday night with the Bills and the Bengals. But let's start off on this Football Friday with a bunch of doing college football as well. We'll preview Bama and LSU and so much more. But I got to get into that football game from last night to kick off Week 9 of the NFL season, as the Pittsburgh Steelers just survived up against the Tennessee Titans. Yesterday, I predicted that the Steelers would win 21-17, so we won some cash, laying the 3 points, and the final score was 20-16. And I think there's 2 takeaways from this game. And we're all still trying to figure out what Kenny Pickett is through 2 years as an NFL starting quarterback. And on the other side, Will Levis, who's only been able to start 2 games so far in his career, he has left you desiring more and wanting to see more of what Will Levis can become. And I'll just say this right out of the gate, there's no doubt about it, Will Levis should remain the Tennessee starting quarterback for the remainder of the season. He was not great last night. In the first game, he was great, delivering 4 passing touchdowns, 3 to DeAndre Hopkins, 1 to Nick Westbrook-Akina. And last night, I know he doesn't throw for a passing touchdown, but with not a great situation around him, Tennessee falls to 3-5. He looked like a competent quarterback, and he looked like a quarterback that's athletic. And I'm not ready to say that the ceiling for Will Levis is great, or he's going to be a Hall of Famer, or he's going to be a Pro Bowler, or he's going to be a stud in this league. But so far, the command that Will Levis has and the way he presents himself on a football field makes you say, this guy really fell to the second round. You would think he should have been a first-round pick. Now, I was never someone saying that Will Levis should have been selected in the top 5, but there was a moment where he was projected to be a top 5 pick in this draft, at some points even as high as number 1, and he falls out of the second round to the 33rd overall pick. And we've seen quarterbacks before, and another one in particular right now in the NFL, right? You remember Sam Howell, Sam Howell was at one point supposed to be the number 1 overall pick, back at UNC, lose some wide receivers, loses his running backs in Javonte Williams and Michael Carter, and he plummets and falls all the way to the 5th round. And not that Sam Howell's turned out to be the sensational player in the league, but you see some ups and downs this year with Sam Howell, and you hear some players from the Philadelphia Eagles talk about what Sam Howell was able to do the other day, especially like Jason Kelsey even in a losing effort to the Philadelphia Eagles, and they were impressed with Sam Howell. And they've now seen Sam Howell twice, those members of the Philadelphia Eagles. So Will Levis and Sam Howell are both guys where, even though they were picked in different rounds, for Sam Howell, you say, yeah, that guy probably should not have been a fifth-round draft pick. And then for Will Levis, with how many quarterbacks we've seen go in the first round and just get right into the league and faceplant, and within 2-3 years, if that at most, they're either out of the league or they're in different homes or they've been benched by their current team. So far, it's only 2 games. I'm not saying go throw a parade for Will Levis. And if you're Tennessee, you sit back. I think Richard Sherman said it after the game. Oh, you have your franchise quarterback. Like, I'm not ready to go there with Will Levis, but there's a level of intrigue with Will Levis. And that's really all you could ask for when this is early on in your NFL career and you're only 2 games in. And you have a team that, sure, Derrick Henry found the fountain of youth a little bit last night. We know he's not going to be the dominant force that he once was, but even his drop-off has not been so severe, and he's still a solid player. DeAndre Hopkins, he didn't get in the end zone 4 times, but he has 4 catches for 60 yards in the game last night. I was really impressed with Joey Porter Jr. as well, with the job that he did in coverage, and he wanted to be on DeAndre Hopkins as much as possible. But no one looks at this Tennessee team and says, wow, they're this great team, or wow, they're this unstoppable force, or wow, they're this really great team. So you're asking the quarterback to cook with not the best ingredients right now. So there's definitely some ingredients that add a little flavor and a little spice to the meal and make you think, okay, you could see enough to evaluate, but also there needs to be individual moments that Will Levis has. And so far through his first 2 games, he's provided enough individual moments that just at the bare minimum, I say I want to see more of Will Levis. And I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to put him in a certain level already of getting on the air and saying, oh, he's great, oh, he's wonderful, oh, he's sensational. But through the first 2 games, he's been good. And I'm still trying to figure out on the scale where his apex is going to be. And we know there's bad quarterbacks, below average quarterbacks, good quarterbacks, very good quarterbacks, and then great elite Hall of Fame quarterbacks. No one's going to say after 2 games, oh, wow, elite, oh, wow, Hall of Fame. Like, you can't say that with any merit, but right now he's falling in that good category, and it's can you continue to build off that and then take it to the next step. So I walk away from last night's game, even though they lost, even though he was not the winning quarterback, but I thought to myself, I was more impressed with Will Levis, and I was more curious about what Will Levis can be compared to Kenny Pickett, who sure Kenny Pickett gets the W. Sure, Kenny Pickett now has 7 game-winning drives in his short 2-year career in the NFL. We're not even done with year 2 yet. But the Kenny Pickett performance last night, it's kind of like a mediocre roller coaster ride where you have high expectations and then you leave, and it's not as if you're saying you'll never go back and this roller coaster sucks, but it's underwhelming. So I look at Kenny Pickett, 19 of 30 in the game, 160 yards, a touchdown, was horrible in the first half, and then in the fourth quarter got going. And Kenny Pickett, like, it's weird because he has that grit. He has that toughness. You watch him play, and there is at times an it factor. And he walks away with 7 game-winning drives and a team now that is 5-3. But when I look at Kenny Pickett throughout the duration of the game, more times than not, I just say that Kenny Pickett is a dude and he's not the dude. And there's a difference in that. Like, you could look like the dude at times, but week in and week out, quarter to the next quarter, half to the next half, I don't see enough moments, even with 7 game-winning drives in his career, and his career is very young, where I go, wow, Kenny Pickett's going to have a ceiling of greatness. Wow, Kenny Pickett's going to win a Super Bowl in this league. Or Kenny Pickett's going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. And even though there are some moments, like when he gets in the end zone late last night where you go, that's what you're looking for, you have to remember they're going up against a bad Tennessee team. Now, this is not this sensational team that people are shaking in their boots and they had to grind it out. And you take a win when you get a win. And Thursday night in the NFL, with the short week, these games are usually not pretty. They are ugly games. But I just don't walk away whenever I watch Kenny Pickett play over a large sample size and say he's going to be one of those quarterbacks that ever has a ceiling of top 5, top 7 in this league. And you either have the quarterback or you don't. Buffalo has their quarterback in Josh Allen. The Bengals have their quarterback in Joe Burrow. The city I'm in right now, Philadelphia, they have their quarterback in Jalen Hurts. Clearly, the Kansas City Chiefs have their quarterback in Patrick Mahomes. Those are the 4 top quarterbacks in football right now. Those are the 4 best quarterbacks in football. Baltimore has their guy in Lamar Jackson. And I could give you like 3 or 4 other names when you're trying to build the top 10 or like 9 out of 10 guys. And I don't think Kenny Pickett is anywhere close, nor should he be this young in his career, of being a top 10 quarterback. But you see guys like Lamar Jackson, first true year as a starter, wins a league MVP, unanimous, by the way. Patrick Mahomes, first true year as a starter, win an MVP. And those are guys that are trying to become immortals. Those are guys that they're already getting ready to carve out their bust in Canton, Ohio. And there's a lot of football left for all those guys. And there's a lot of career still to build on. But sometimes when you have a quarterback, and we've seen this in the league before, whether it's a Kirk Cousins, whether it's a Dak Prescott, even like a Ryan Tannehill, to some extent, where there's just some quarterbacks that get stuck on just being good quarterbacks. And they could look like the dude at times, but at the end of the season, when you go through the turbulence and the ups and downs of a 17-game regular season, you say more so, oh yeah, they're just one of the guys. They're not the guy. And that's what I do believe, even though he has this uncanny ability to move the team down the field, even when he looks like he's not going to do so. And he just finds a way to walk away with the victories. It's not as if you walk away when you watch Kenny Pickett and go, I'm fearful of Kenny Pickett, and Kenny Pickett's going to be a stud in this league, and Kenny Pickett is going to be this great, untouchable player in this league. And I know some of this may seem unfair because he's so young into his career. He hasn't even gone through 2 years in the NFL, and he missed the first few games last year because the Steelers were stupid when they were starting Mitch Trubisky. But you can evaluate. And a lot of times now, and maybe the system's unfair, you have to evaluate quickly, and you have to make these decisions very early on, because a guy like Kenny Pickett, who was a first-round pick, you get 5 years. And I'm not saying you always get those 5 years, but contractually, you get the 4 years as a first-round pick and then the 5th-year option. And usually after year 3 or year 4, those quarterbacks, deservedly so, ask for these big, lucrative salaries. And if you told me tomorrow that, like, hey, 2 years from now, Kenny Pickett, do you think he's going to be one of those $45, $50 million quarterbacks, whatever it's going to go up to, I wouldn't feel great if I'm allocating that much money to Kenny Pickett to be QB1 of my team. I'm not saying Kenny Pickett's trash. I'm not saying Kenny Pickett's horrible. I'm not saying Kenny Pickett can't be a good player in this league. But I don't see the ceiling for Kenny Pickett in the NFL to be great, to be a Hall of Fame player, to be a Super Bowl champion. And as I said earlier, it is like a mediocre roller coaster ride, where when you walk away, it's not, man, this sucked, or man, this is horrible. Yeah, there was some exciting moments. Sure, he has the 7 game-winning drives, but then, like, you look at the numbers, they've been outgained every game, and they're the only team in the history of the NFL to still have a winning record. You know, that stat was absolutely bonkers, that the Steelers are the only team in the Super Bowl era to have a winning record 5-3 through 8 games, despite being outgained every game. Pittsburgh has been outgained by 790 yards this year. That stat courtesy of our friends from NFL on CBS. So that's where I'm at with that game last night. And I also wonder, what are the Steelers going to be this year? Because the Steelers, they have a great defense. You know, Alex Highsmith, it's weird to say that a player that's making nearly $70 million, because he just signed a $70 million contract, is underrated, but that dude's underrated. And I've got a chance to speak to him a few times throughout the years. He is a special player, you know, landed at Charlotte and worked his way to becoming, I believe, a 3rd-round draft pick. And I know everyone talks about TJ Watt, which how great was TJ Watt last night, getting to the quarterback with losing his helmet, still sacking the quarterback and causing 3 penalties. when you go from one drive to the next on back-to-back-to-back sequences, and TJ Watt is looking like the defensive player of the year. It's either him or Myles Garrett. But we know that Steelers defense, even without guys like Cam Hayward, even without Minkah Fitzpatrick with injuries, is a dominant, lethal defense. And when you're a dominant, lethal defense, you're going to have a decent record. But that's only going to take you so far, especially in a league that is dependent on offensive football. And when I watch the Steelers, and let's be clear here, I don't think Matt Canada is this brilliant coach. I think Matt Canada shouldn't be the offensive coordinator of the Pittsburgh Steelers. They move him from the box down to the field, and I don't like how he got cute at the 2-yard line last night, going to the Wildcat, and it caused a penalty. That made no sense. So some of it is, you wonder, is Kenny Pickett in the best situation, even though Tomlin's a really good coach, even though you have a really good defense. But you look at that offense, Najee Harris is up and down. Warren's been a solid running back this year. Deontay Johnson finally got in the end zone. Pickens, I'll defend Kenny on that one. He had a perfect ball. George Pickens, can you get the second foot down? You got to drag that foot. But offensively, through now 8 games, the Steelers just don't have an identity. The Steelers just don't look like a good offense. And you could say maybe that's more coaching than it is players, but I do believe that it is a mixture of both. And we've seen this now from the Steelers in the last decade. When they have a great defense, the offense stinks. When the offense is great, the defense stinks. And it's a credit to Tomlin that this team is 5-3, but Steelers fans, their standards are not to just make the playoffs. And the more and more I watch the Steelers, the more and more I just think, yeah, they could be a wild card team, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I expect anything more than that. Like, you may not want to play the Steelers in the playoffs because of Watt eventually getting Fitzpatrick back, Hayward back, and you have Alex Highsmith. That defense is going to be a pain in the ass. But if you're able to score 20 points, which is not a lot in the year of 2023, up against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and if you get Kenny Pickett to make a mistake, assuming he makes the playoffs this year in his first ever playoff game, which is not asking for a lot. We see young quarterbacks make mistakes all the time before in the postseason. If all you got to do is score 20, 21 points, I don't believe that you're shaking in your boots going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers in the wild card round. So Steelers can make the playoffs. I don't really expect, though, anything more than that. Where's your evaluation on Will Levis, Kenny Pickett, and also the Pittsburgh Steelers? 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. This is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I am live in Philly today, broadcasting from our Sports Radio 94 WIP studios inside the Odyssey family. So we thank them for accommodating us. But when we come on back, we got to look at 3 games, 3 enormous games this weekend. Chiefs-Dolphins, Cowboys-Eagles, Bills-Bengals. When you look at those individual matchups, where is the pressure on and what team has more pressure heading into this loaded weekend of football in the National Football League? We'll take a time out and come on back after these short messages.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Legendary NFL on CBS broadcaster Ian Eagle here with us.
You're a natural iconoclast. I've known that about you from way back when in your teen years. So none of this is surprising, and it's what makes you an excellent talk show host.
Yeah, Skip Bayless Gelb just called me. That's what people say these days.
Hot take, hot take.
Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
You can stream the NFL on Westwood One for free, sponsored by AutoZone. All season long, you can listen to every Westwood One broadcast of the NFL live on the NFL app by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports on the Odyssey app. Get in the zone, AutoZone. AutoZone's free battery testing and charging is available for free at your local AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Restrictions apply. So the three behemoth games this weekend, mega games this weekend in the NFL, are the Chiefs visiting the Dolphins, of course, in Germany. You have the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles in South Philadelphia, and then the Buffalo Bills going up against the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati. When we're looking at pressure on these teams going into this weekend, which teams have the more pressure on them in these three massive matchups? And we start with the Chiefs and the Dolphins. It's clear that the pressure is on the Miami Dolphins, and I get it. This is a Kansas City team that they haven't been bad this year, but the Chiefs are to a certain standard, and when Kansas City loses to Denver And I know the Lions are now a good team, but when you already have 2 losses on your resume before you've gone to week 9 of the NFL season, Kansas City's just going to be one of those teams that elicits a response of, oh, what's going on in Kansas City? Oh, is Kansas City vulnerable this year? Are there problems with the defending champs? And I believe all that commentary is just kind of, I don't want to say it's not valid, but I do believe that it is ridiculous when it comes off a year where last year the Chiefs weren't this dominant force, and they still got the number 1 seed. They still found a way to get to the Super Bowl while Patrick Mahomes was hurt. And even when they were trailing by 10 points at halftime and they no longer had Tyreek Hill because he was in Miami, they still found a way to come on back against the Philadelphia Eagles and win the Super Bowl. So I as long as they're healthy, I really don't care what the Kansas City Chiefs do in the regular season that will evoke a response and an emotion from me that goes, man, Kansas City's not looking good. Oh, Kansas City, they are going to find a way to lose in the playoffs this year. Kansas City is not going to get to the Super Bowl because last year we went through this song and dance and we all said Kansas City was vulnerable. And with them being vulnerable, and it's not like they were going up against a bad opponent in the AFC Championship game or they had an easy road to the Super Bowl. Like, they played Jacksonville. Mahomes got hurt. Then they had to welcome in Kansas City, who has kicked their ass 3 straight times. And then they get to the Super Bowl, and they went up against a team that never really had a flaw last year in the Philadelphia Eagles. And all they did was win, win, and win. So when Kansas City looks, quote-unquote, vulnerable, a lot of times it's just a gross overreaction because we expect the standard for Kansas City to be all the way up here. And when they're not playing a perfect game, and outside of the Dolphins back in 72, it's impossible to be perfect in the NFL. When they stumble a little bit, it's not like a team a few notches below them stumbling where it's, wow, you need to be real concerned that they're going to miss the playoffs this year. Like, we all know Kansas City's winning the AFC West. We all know Kansas City, bare minimum, is going to have 1 home playoff game. Maybe the road to the Super Bowl is going to travel through Kansas City. Mahomes has never had to play a road playoff game. But when you see Kansas City come playoff time, and their defense has been really good this year under Steve Spagnuolo, and usually it's this time of the year where the defense starts to get going, and they've been ahead of that curve, I got to think eventually the offense is going to be more successful as long as Mahomes and Kelsey stay healthy, and you got to have someone else emerge. And it doesn't need to be week in and week out. Like, it would be nice if Marquez Valdez-Scantling emerged week in and week out, or Sky Moore, like whoever the wide receiver is. But you just need one of those guys that are a part of the receiving core to be able to do the heavy lifting outside of the connection from 15 to 87 and Pacheco in the run game that can find a way to make enough plays to get Kansas City to the finish line at the end of a 60-minute game. But I don't put pressure on Kansas City in this one. Even though they're coming off a loss, it does make the game a little extra juicier in terms of if the Chiefs lose on Sunday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, when that game gets underway, then on Monday, you're going to have every Tom, Dick, and Harry that does national radio or national TV shows besides Zach Gelb. They're going to be like, oh, this is it for Kansas City. Kansas City's not that great. And then don't be surprised when you wake up in January and Kansas City's in an AFC Championship game. So there's more pressure on the Dolphins in this game. Long story short, because the Dolphins, even though they have this high-octane, explosive offense, and the Miami Dolphins are just unbelievable, and they're like a video game on the offensive side of the ball, the Miami Dolphins in their 2 biggest games of the season, a team that still needs to prove themselves, a team that still has a lot more to accomplish, and they don't get the benefit of the doubt, even though they're a really talented team, and they were my pick to win the AFC East before the season started. They need to play well, and they need to beat an elite opponent, or else there's always going to be that feeling of, yeah, but with the Miami Dolphins. Like, the Dolphins are awesome, but in their 2 biggest games of the season, they got smacked by Buffalo, and then they lost 2 weeks ago up against the Philadelphia Eagles. So this could be a week where you can start to eliminate or entirely eliminate with the opponent that you're going up against. Yeah, but the Dolphins can't find a way to win a big game. And we all know Tyreek Hill's going to get in the end zone. Jalen Waddle's a stud. As long as Tua Tagovailoa stays healthy, he's awesome. Eventually they'll get Devon Achane back. You got Raheem Mostert. Jeff Wilson Jr. comes on back. You have Jalen Ramsey on the defensive side of the ball that had an interception 94 days after his whole meniscus injury, and it's crazy how quickly his return was expedited. But I really do believe for Miami to win this game, their two most important players and their two most valuable players. I'm not saying on the season. I'm just saying in this game. Like, we've talked about it. For the MVP of the league, it's a conversation from the Dolphins of either Tyreek Hill and Tua Tagovailoa. Personally, I side more with Tyreek Hill to win the league MVP over Tua Tagovailoa. But if they want to beat Kansas City, their two most valuable players actually aren't even on the offensive side of the ball. It's Christian Wilkins, the big fella out of Clemson, who's really damn good on the defensive side of the ball, and then Jalen Phillips off the edge for the Miami Dolphins as well. Because you go back last year when the Chiefs were playing the Buffalo Bills, and that was two really good teams going up against one another, just how it feels like you have two really good teams going up against one another here, Chiefs and the Dolphins. That game last year in the regular season, where it was early on and the Bills got the best of Kansas City, it was won because you had the great Von Miller come off the edge, force Mahomes to step up earlier than he wanted to, rush, make an ill-advised decision, and get the ball off quicker than what he preferred to do, and he threw an interception to Teron Johnson. That's the type of impact what Jalen Phillips and Christian Wilkins can present, where they could get after Mahomes and maybe force Mahomes to make a mistake or two, because you know the Dolphins are going to be able to score at least 3 touchdowns, even with how good Kansas City's defense is. And maybe this is a statement for the Kansas City defense, because everyone's going to be getting up early, scrambling the eggs, getting the well-done bacon, and enjoying yourself a nice breakfast. And everyone's going to be tuned into this one. And I think if you watch football, you know the Chiefs' defense is good this year. But nationally, people have not given the Chiefs' defense praise, because what we do in this industry is all we do is talk about the quarterback and the head coach and who's the big star stud wide receiver or running back that wins you your fantasy football matchup. So in this game, let's be clear about it. The Dolphins are the team that have the most pressure on them up against the Kansas City Chiefs. Cowboys and Eagles, I think this one's easy. The Eagles get the benefit of the doubt. The Eagles, even though they don't have the Super Bowl, and they won a Super Bowl a few years ago, but I'm talking about with this core for the most part, the Eagles are the Kansas City of the NFC, which I don't care what they do in the regular season. They're 7-1. They get the benefit of the doubt. If you watch the games, you know the Eagles, who haven't even played their best brand of football yet, are the best team in the NFC. But with that being said, the Cowboys, especially their quarterback, Dak Prescott, has had success up against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Cowboys are a team where earlier in the year, people were like, wow, maybe we underestimated the Dallas Cowboys. Maybe when Zach Gelb says the Cowboys are the drama Dallas choking Cowboys, he's being unfair and he's being too overly critical. The Cowboys have been able to beat the bad teams this year. And not only beat the bad teams, annihilate the bad teams. And like when your best wins are up against the Chargers and the Rams, who are both below 500, it's tough for me to sit there and say the Cowboys are this dominant team. And when they did go up against the 49ers, who, oh yeah, by the way, have just lost 3 straight games, the Cowboys not only lost to the 49ers, they got embarrassed. They got emasculated. They got destroyed by the San Francisco 49ers. So for Dallas, now you go up against one of those quote-unquote elite teams, and the Eagles are an elite team in the NFL, and this is a big-time statement game for Dallas. Because you look at Dallas, you know their defense is good. You know they have a really solid defense. But offensively, when the games get bigger, the Cowboys start to fade offensively, especially their quarterback in Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, he cannot be the reason on Monday when we get in here and we react all around the league why the Cowboys lost the game. Like, he can physically be, but for his sake, he can't be. And this is a big statement game for the Cowboys, where if they go into Philly and get a win, that's as good of a win that you'll find this year in the NFL, and it would maybe start to earn some people, allowing them to let their wall down a little bit and trust the Cowboys again. Now, for me, I don't think the Cowboys could do anything this regular season that will allow yours truly to trust them, because I've seen the script the last 2 years, and I fell for it even last year. I thought they were going to beat the 49ers in Santa Clara in that rematch, going back to last year in the playoffs in the divisional round, and it was going to be an NFC title game of the Eagles and the 49ers. That's what I really thought was going to happen. But the Cowboys, as we've seen the last 2 years, have been able to win back-to-back 12-win games, back-to-back seasons. Then come playoff time, their defense does enough to deserve a victory, but Dak Prescott either can't get the ball snapped or he's fumbling the ball or throwing the ball to the other team. And then finally, Bills and Bengals. See, this one was tough. To determine who has the most pressure between the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals, I think that is a very tough question. Like the first two, it's easily the Miami Dolphins having more pressure than the Kansas City Chiefs. It's easily the Dallas Cowboys having more pressure than the Philadelphia Eagles. But you have a Bengals team here that's now 4-3. They started 1-3, and they were able to salvage their season, and now the Bengals appear to be back. But even if the Bengals lose this game and fall to 4-4, I don't think there's a panic as long as Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are healthy. Because we've seen with the Bengals, when number 9 is healthy, they are a top 4 team in the NFL, regardless of where the record is currently right now. But when you look at Buffalo has been that team that was that darling the last few years, that a lot of people enjoyed to see. A lot of people wanted to see Bills Mafia, and still probably do, win their first ever championship, and it would be one of the greatest parties we've ever seen as sports fans. But this Bills team, there's no consistency. Like, they go out there and they dominate the Dolphins, and then, like, the next 3 or 4 weeks, they were losing games, they were sloppy, and they were really underwhelming. So for Buffalo, last year, as I said earlier, you didn't only just lose to the Bengals. They walked into your home, they drank your beer, they ate your food, and they slept with your girl. Like, that's what the Buffalo Bills had happened to them last year up against the Bengals in their own home. And the Bills couldn't do anything about it because the Bengals were that much better. And now you go back to Cincinnati. Unfortunately, we all remembered last time what happened when the Bengals were in Cincinnati. It was the scariest night of my radio career, being on the air and watching the Damar Hamlin situation unfold. And I'm happy now that it has turned into a good situation and Damar Hamlin's doing wonderful, because no one, when they were watching that live, thought that was going to be the case, and we all assumed the worst, and who could blame you? But in terms of this game, and I know that they played last year in that divisional round, and they had the result that I was just talking about, and Damar Hamlin was in the luxury box watching the game. But in this matchup, I think this game means more for Buffalo, because people look at Cincinnati after surviving the slow start to the season. Even if they lose, they'll say, okay, they'll be fine just as long as Burrow's healthy. For the Bills, there's a legitimate chance they don't even win their division this year. And the Bills now don't have a lot of people saying, oh, they'll find a way to get to the Super Bowl. They look at Buffalo and they go, okay, they're a good team, maybe even a very good team, but I don't think they're a great or an elite team anymore, and that's what a lot of people say. So this could win some public trust back with the Buffalo Bills if they go into Cincinnati and get the dub. Who has the most pressure on them this weekend in the NFL? 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll take a break. We'll come on back with the news brief. But first up, standing by in our New York City studios with the latest CBS Sports Radio update, here he is, the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flag.
Well, the quest for the Larry O'Brien Trophy began last week. One for the NBA Cup begins tonight. The NBA's first in-season tournament begins with the in-season champ to be crowned next month. The winners will also receive a share of $500,000. Group play will tip things off, in which each team will play the other four in its group once. The two teams are unbeaten so far. The Celtics lead the East at 4-0. In the West, the Mavericks are also 4-0 and will be in Denver tonight. And Grant Williams said it's a long season. They have to stay on point.
I'm not focused on the 4-0. I'm focused on Denver on Friday. But, we have a lot that we continue to learn with. That's the mentality of this team. We can't ever get comfortable because, as you know, in this league, as quickly as you can win 4, you can lose 4.
Jason Kidd will not be coaching them tonight due to an illness. The Warriors have won 4 of their first 5 and are in Oklahoma City. The Rams' Matthew Stafford is questionable with a sprained thumb. Josh Allen, though, good to go after missing practice earlier in the week with a shoulder injury. He's off the injury report. 3-time Cy Young Award winner Clayton Kershaw underwent shoulder surgery. He's hoping to be able to pitch next summer. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Looking for CBS Sports Radio online? Your favorite hosts and the best sports content and entertainment are available 24/7 on social media and YouTube and in the palm of your hand with the free Odyssey app.
4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio.
Sean Payton may be the biggest buffoon in the NFL right now. Because Sean Payton this offseason, he went after Nathaniel Hackett. And he said Nathaniel Hackett did one of the worst coaching jobs in the history of the league. When you say that, it's a must-win when you go up against Nathaniel Hackett's offense. The Jets won the game up against the Denver Broncos, and that is as bad of a look as humanly possible for Sean Payton.
This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
It's time to Ask the Pros, where you, the listener, gets to ask us a question, and it's brought to you by our good friends at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at CBS Sports Radio or at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB, using the hashtag Ask the Pros. Be listening later in the show when we might answer your question. You can thank O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Let's get to a news brief.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Let's start it off with Joey Porter Jr., the Steelers rookie cornerback, on shadowing DeAndre Hopkins all game last night.
I told him I want 10. Like, that's what I was looking for. You know, I don't really hide from nothing. So I was like, that's the matchup I want. That's the matchup I need. So he didn't really say yes on Tuesday. He's like, we're going to think about it. Because they were like, that's kind of crazy. But throughout the week, they was like, all right, we're going to let you get 10 on some reps. And then throughout the game, it was like, you just go with 10.
So, you know he's ready for this moment, Joey Porter Jr. And you know he has the confidence knowing who his father is. And sometimes when you have such a youngster who's so confident, you know is going to be great, for whatever reason in football, you try to slowly bring them on. And you try to make them earn it in the NFL. And now Mike Tomlin has no reason but to start Joey Porter Jr., but his reps were limited earlier in the season, and now they've been ramming up that intensity and getting him to start more and more. But that dude's an absolute stud, and he looks like another wonderful draft pick, where the Steelers are just one of those teams, right? The Ravens are, where some teams you always expect good defensive players to find a way there. That's what happened here once again with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Here is Davante Adams making his first public comments since Josh McDaniels got fired.
Don't get it confused. It's not a celebration that we have a new coach and, there's been changes made. One way or the other, it's time for some sort of change, just to bring a little juice in and revitalize the team a little bit. And I think it's more of a mindset that we're trying to just have moving forward to just be as positive as possible. Trying to have fun and enjoy our time in this building, because I think it's been too much of this has just been feeling like work too much and not having enough fun.
Stu, I'm just wondering, when you hear that, what do you feel as a Raiders fan?
Yeah, I mean, it just, he could say what he wants. We all know how he really feels. We know he's happy, right? I mean,
oh yeah, he when
thrilled.
He says it's not a celebration, he was popping champagne.
Yeah, he was very happy they made
fired.
the move. Yes,
and I get it, right? McDaniels comes from the Belichick tree, where that's why Belichick assistants don't work, because they do the my way or the highway result, and it's like, okay, Josh McDaniels, you have all these Super Bowls, but you never had a Super Bowl or even came close to even getting to the playoffs as an NFL head coach. So I think when you have that approach, yeah, athletes feel like more as if they're robots than human beings. But if the goal is, and I don't want to sound like a curmudgeon here, if the goal is just to have fun, you could have fun. It's not as if now the Raiders all of a sudden, because McDaniel's out of the building, they're having fun. That means it's going to translate into more wins for this football team. Here is Jordan Poyer of the Buffalo Bills. He was on the RG3-1's podcast, how he almost lost his career to alcoholism.
I was this close from losing my family, RG. Like, I'm talking my wife, my daughter. Like, it was this close from everything. Like, my original sobriety date was March 7th, and I couldn't do it at that time. I couldn't do it. I didn't know how. And then it was almost like that was the last straw. It was like something in me was just like, dude, this is it. And so I started going to AA, and then I started to shift my perspective on how I saw alcohol, and what it was doing to my body every time I drank it. And then I just started to I look at it as poison now. Like, why would I put poison into my body? Like, why would I do that?
Hey, I appreciate Jordan Poyer for sharing his story publicly. And it's not just almost losing your career, as we set it up. It's really, almost losing your family, too. And unfortunately, when you travel down a road that he was going down, if you continue down that way, as much as people want to support you, you lose them, because it's not healthy for them to then be around you. So I'm happy that Jordan Poyer, I know it's a day-by-day struggle, he's in a good spot right now. And it's just awesome to see for a player in the NFL who's a really good player, and it just shows you that athletes, even though we put them on this pedestal and they're these tremendous human beings and players, and like they're wonderful and and everyone looks up to them, and they think that they're bigger than life a lot of times. At least we think that way. They go through normal stuff as well that happens in this world with alcoholism. So if you need help, go get help, and hopefully Jordan Poyer can inspire you. Here's Travis Kelce in Germany with the Dolphins going up against the Kansas City Chiefs, and he was asked about Taylor Swift and if he's in love with Taylor Swift.
Wondering how many people would ask something about Taylor Swift. Latest status, and are you in love?
What is the latest status? Spice it up. The latest status is I got to see her last week. That's the latest status right there.
Are you in love?
I'm going to keep my personal relationship personal.
I can't believe that's a question that's asked, but good for the media in Germany. Travis Kelce's coming over. We know how big of a mega global star Taylor Swift is. What a line of questioning. Are you in love? Yeah, I saw her last week. That's my status. Oh, that's sensational. Stu, let me ask you this. How do you think your girlfriend would react if, let's just say, you guys were newly dating, not now,
right?
And I asked you on the air if you're in love with your girlfriend and you were just like, yeah, I saw her last week. How do you think that would go down?
Yeah, I don't. That's a weird question for such an early on part of the relationship. But yeah, she would be like, what the hell, I think.
Yeah, it's like humming. I don't want to say we're in love yet. We're trying to keep it slow, but everyone's watching right now, so you almost have to say yes at that point. Here is 94 WIP. We're in their studios right now. A cop actually pulled someone over during a call today.
You got to get the team up, the players up, to hate the Cowboys. Hit them in the face. Knee them in their glory holes, as Jerry would say. You've got to bring that culture back. You've got to get them. Sorry, I'm pulling someone over. You've got to get that back and get them back in. This is not just a game.
You have a cop ranting about the Cowboys and his hatred for them, and then he pulls someone over. I guess the only way you get out of that ticket was if you're listening to the call at 94 WIP. You go, oh, no, continue the call. Or if you're a Cowboys fan, you're definitely not getting out of that ticket. Let's hear Jerry Jones. You heard the glory hole reference there. He has a message to Rangers fans at the parade.
The rough times that you have with sport, everybody has it. Everybody, you can't really play unless you have some hard times. But it is the absolute glory hole to have that elusive win to be the champion.
Interesting choice of words. And finally, here's James Harden and what he wants his role to be in Los Angeles.
Like, I think the game, and I'm a creator on the court. You know what I mean? So if I got a voice to where I can, hey, coach, I see this. You know, what you think about this? Then it's like, oh, okay. Like somebody that trusts me, that believes in me, that understands me, that I'm not a system player. I am a system.
Yeah, well, what's the James Harden system at this stage of his career? Going to strip clubs and just not showing up in the postseason? Give me a break. No accountability from James Harden. Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
And away we go, hour number 2 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. I'm here in our Philly offices today as this city is getting ready for a big Sunday night or Sunday afternoon matchup between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. And by the way, the NFL, they clearly all want us to watch that game because the 4 o'clock window, and I look how many games there are in the 4 o'clock window because I do the 8-hour Ion Football Studio show on Sundays, and when you don't have 4 games, it's like, oh, you only got 3 games to talk about. That's not a whole lot of fun. But here is the wonderful 4 o'clock slate for this weekend when we do have a game, a window on Sunday where the games are awesome. Like it starts early in the morning, even though I don't love that the NFL's being a bunch of pigs and they're having this game in Germany. This game should be in Kansas City between the Chiefs and the Dolphins, and it should be the return of Tyreek Hill to Chiefs Kingdom. But you have that game at 9:30 a.m. to really get the party started. And then throughout the rest of the day, you do have Cowboys and Eagles in that 4:25 p.m. Eastern time slot. Sunday Night Football game is Bills and the Bengals. The 1 o'clock slate, Vikings, Falcons, underwhelming. Cardinals, Browns, not that great. Rams, Packers, not that great. Commanders, Patriots, not that great. Bears Saints, not that great, but a really good game and a game that's not getting a lot of coverage. Seahawks and Ravens, the Bucks and the Texans is your 1 o'clock window. It's not an ideal 1 o'clock window, but you have that one marquee game at 1 o'clock between the Ravens and the Seahawks in Baltimore. You have a great 9:30 a.m. Eastern time game in the Dolphins and the Chiefs. And then in the 4 p.m. window, you have the Colts and the Panthers. That's a snooze fest. If you want to play up, and I don't think anyone cares about this nationally, the Frank Reich revenge game, you could be my guest. Then you got the Giants and the Raiders. Like, okay, Daniel Jones is coming back, and now we're going to have to watch Aiden O'Connell quarterback the Raiders. But really, the NFL probably scheduled it this way. Let's schedule 2 teams that are in the Colts and the Panthers, 2 teams that are in the Giants and Raiders, and let's give you the Cowboys up against the Eagles, and I bet you the ratings are going to be absolutely massive for that game, and then it wraps up on Sunday night between the Bills and the Bengals. And honestly, Monday night is not a bad game. The Jets are now intriguing. They don't have a good quarterback, but they have a really good defense, and they welcome in the Los Angeles Chargers, who the Chargers, even though they don't have more wins than losses and they're 3-4 on the year, like every Charger game, even if it's bad, it's entertaining, because you have all these big-time players and these players that have a lot of clout in this league, but either Brandon Staley messes it up or the Chargers are driving late, just like what they've done for the last 20 years, and they make a mistake at the end of the game. So Chargers-Jets, not the greatest Monday Night Football game in the world, but I'm actually going to be going to that game at MetLife Stadium in the Swamps of Jersey after we do the show on Monday. Going to check that one out. But that is an okay Monday night game for especially some of the games that we do get in football this year in primetime windows. So definitely NFL is begging you, imploring you to just watch Cowboys and Eagles when the other 2 games in the 4 o'clock window are the crappy Colts and the crappy Panthers and the crappy Giants and the crappy Raiders. But right now, let's do a little college football here. Andrei Iosivas from the Cincinnati Bengals, their wide receiver, their rookie wide receiver out of Princeton, is going to stop on by in about 15 minutes from now. But let's take a look at who's got home field advantage this weekend in our NCAA football preview, sponsored by Fairfield by Marriott. Fairfield by Marriott is the official hotel partner of the NCAA with over 1,000 locations around the country. You'll always have the home field advantage. Visit fairfield.marriott.com to book your stay. And Alabama, number 8 in the country, hosts 14th LSU on Saturday night at Bryant-Denny. And Bama is 7-1 in the season, led by Jalen Milroe at QB, who has 18 total TDs and 5 interceptions on the season. LSU, meanwhile, is 6-2 with Jaden Daniels, who has 30 total touchdowns with just 3 interceptions. This is the ultimate game of I don't have a damn clue what's going to happen. I don't care if you're a betting expert. I don't care if you're a college football expert. Nobody could tell me that they have a confident read in this game. And even if you end up getting it right, it's really just luck. Because you look at LSU, they started off that season where they didn't even show up in the second half against Florida State. Florida State kicked their ass in the second half, and they won the game 45-24. Then a team that had national championship aspirations for the year started LSU. It's like, okay, you have one loss, but it's to an ACC team. You got to go run the table. Because if you pick up a second loss, there's never been a 2-loss team in the history of the 4-team college football playoff to actually make it. And in that game at the end of September, they lost in a shootout to Lane Kiffin's Ole Miss team. Now, LSU is a really good offense. Like, you just heard the numbers for their quarterback in Daniels. He's a stud. And if he didn't already have 2 losses, he would be pretty damn near the top in the Heisman Trophy conversation. But you also have to have the team success. And we saw last year with LSU lost early, then got hot, then found a way in the SEC championship game before they lost to Georgia. They could still make the SEC championship game, only having 1 loss in the conference. But this weekend, I'm not saying the appeal of this game has gone away, but imagine if this was a 1-loss LSU team going up against what is a 1-loss Alabama team. It would feel as if this game would be a whole lot bigger, and this is the biggest game of the weekend. But if LSU wins, yes, you're still alive to go get into that SEC championship game, and you're in the driver's seat, but you do kind of, or we'll see how it does shake out the rest of the way with what happens with Ole Miss. But you look at this game, if LSU is able to win, it's not as if you walk away saying, wow, like, look at this LSU team. Because what are you playing for? There is going to be some feeling of this being an underwhelming season, even if you get to the SEC championship game, just because of the sole fact this was considered one of the top 4, top 6 teams in the country before the start of this year with legitimate NCAA championship hopes. And now you know you're not going to get into, barring a miracle and chaos going down in the final 3-4 weeks of the season, the college football playoff. So for LSU, I know their defense isn't good. Offensively, they're a bunch of studs. And then you go on the flip side, why I say this game is a monster unknown, is when you look at Alabama this entire year, it just looks like something isn't right and something's off. And they lost that game to Texas. Then Saban, I thought, had the outside noise, which usually he never lets get to him. It did affect him and get to him. You bench Milroe, and then you had a very pedestrian performance up against South Florida. And then after that, you go back to Milroe. You beat Ole Miss. You beat Mississippi State. You beat A&M in a game that A&M just gift-wrapped to you. You beat Arkansas. And last week, you kind of saw the definition of Alabama, where when you watch them, they almost give you like a football heart attack. Because Alabama, the first 2 quarters, they look dead. They look done. You know, I was watching that game in an airport, and I tweeted it out when I was eating some crappy airport pizza and having an adult beverage and having a beer. And I tweeted out the Alabama season was already on life support, and we got to think about pulling the plug now. And then in the third quarter, boom, Milroe plays his best quarter of the season. Alabama plays their best quarter of the season. And the next thing you know, they're up going into the fourth quarter, and they end up being beating Tennessee by 14 points. So I don't know what LSU team's going to show up, and I don't know what Alabama team is going to show up. Offensively, I clearly trust LSU more compared to Alabama's offense. Defensively, it's not even close. I trust Alabama's defense more than the bad LSU defense. So the games at Alabama, I can't really trust Milroe, but I'm going to trust that the defense does enough here. And for Alabama, you got to keep this game in the 20s. If this gets into the 30s, and if this gets into the mid-30s, I don't feel good about Alabama winning. But I don't like this game in terms of a game that I'm going to be gambling on. But it is a game as a college football fan. I'll definitely be watching it because it's the ultimate intriguing game of the weekend at 7:45 p.m. Eastern on CBS. And Alabama is a 3-point favorite. And that's what usually happens. If you're the home team, you get 3 points. So for the most part, they're looking at you and LSU as it just comes down to home field advantage, and this game could go either way. And I think it's the right line by Vegas because you look at that line, you're like, oh, Alabama's only a 3-point favorite. Maybe they're begging to take LSU. Then you take LSU and you end up losing. Or, oh, it's only Bama -3. Let's just jump on that. And then it ends up being the right play. But both of these teams, I don't know what to expect. Other than Neighbors is sensational on the offense side of the ball for LSU. Daniels is sensational on the offensive side of the ball for LSU. And then we know Alabama's defense just has a bunch of dogs on that defensive side of the ball. So that's one college football game to look at. Other college football games this weekend, where if you would ask me earlier in the week, is this a good weekend of college football? I would say, it's an okay week. There's actually a lot of storylines this weekend. So I was just reading this right before we got on the air. Colorado, according to ESPN, has stripped their offensive coordinator, Sean Lewis, of his offensive play calling duties and is elevating analyst Pat Shurmur. Yes, that Pat Shurmur, the former NFL head coach, to an on-field role with expectations that he will take over as the team's play caller. That is what sources told ESPN. So I do think Oregon State beats Colorado this weekend. Is there going to be any impact, though, with Pat Shurmur now becoming the offensive coordinator? And I don't think this is a move that you could criticize it. But just because you put Pat Shurmur calling the plays, I don't think this changes much for Colorado because it's clear what the problem is for Colorado right now. Their offensive line is just not good. And Coach Prime even told you that after the game, where he's like, yeah, we're going to go get new offensive linemen in the transfer portal. So the key for Colorado to have a chance in this game, because we know Shedeur Sanders is a phenomenal quarterback, the key for them to have a chance is you got to give him some time to think. And you got to protect him better. Does a new offensive coordinator do that? Probably not, but I've seen crazier things happen. I don't think I've ever said these words in my life, but I'm actually intrigued this weekend with Ohio State and Rutgers. Don't get me wrong. Ohio State's going to win the game. There's no doubt about it in my mind that the Buckeyes will win the game. But is this going to be a blowout, or is this going to be a close game? Because Rutgers has been a team, quietly, they've been solid this year. And Greg Schiano's doing a fine job once again with that program, considering what the standards are and being in the Big Ten and how much is working against you to actually be solid. But for Ohio State last week against Wisconsin, and hey, I get it, it's Luke Fickell. I get it, it's the Badgers in year one. But the Badgers aren't this wonderful team. Ohio State showed you they have a great defense. Maserati Marv, as Gus Johnson would call him, is the best non-quarterback in the sport. But offensively, their offense just seems like it's missing something. And there's a trust issue with Kyle McCord, for me, at their quarterback position. So I kind of want to just see if Ohio State could blow out Rutgers this weekend. Or is this a game at halftime where you go, Ohio State's underwhelming, but you know they're going to find a way to win the game? Kansas State and Texas, all eyes will be on Malik Murphy. What will happen for him in start number 2? Texas A&M and Ole Miss. Hey, Ole Miss is the better team. Texas A&M may have more talent on paper, but Jimbo Fisher, can you go get a win up against a team that's playing better football than you right now? Because Texas A&M, they are one of the more loaded rosters in the country. They have a top 6 roster in the country when you look at the talent, even with Connor Wigman no longer being their quarterback because of the injury. But for A&M, they just don't win enough. And the last 2 years, you look at them and you go, where your talent is and what your record is doesn't match up, because your talent should mean that you have a lot more wins, and that's a reflection on the coaching with Jimbo Fisher. I'm also fascinated Notre Dame and Clemson. Not that either of these teams are going anywhere, where Clemson has no shot to make the college football playoff. We know that already. And Notre Dame, unfortunately, already dropped 2 games. Notre Dame is the better team. But for Clemson, how do you respond in a week where Dabo Swinney was fighting with a radio caller? And now the standard and the image of Clemson has fallen. So does Dabo have another punch left in him against a team that's just better, and a team that should have beat Ohio State, and then a team that smacked USC in the Notre Dame Fighting Irish? Missouri and Georgia. It's one of those games that people are like, oh, you're getting ready for Missouri and Georgia. And Georgia hasn't lost a game this year, still without Brock Bowers. Missouri is 7-1. If Missouri gives me a game going into the fourth quarter, I'm very happy as a college football fan. Final outing, I guess you could say, of Bedlam for the foreseeable future, at least, with Oklahoma moving to the SEC along with Texas after this year. You have Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. I want to see Oklahoma State say to Oklahoma, don't let the door hit you with the good Lord split you for putting an end, for now, to this great rivalry. Maryland and Penn State. There is a little intrigue here. Penn State's overrated. Penn State with James Franklin is now like Participation State University, where James Franklin's like, oh, I'm not going to apologize for a loss. No one's saying that, but coach, your team didn't play well up against Indiana. And in the biggest game of the year, you guys did nothing offensively up against Ohio State. We know Maryland, with Mike Locksley as the coach and Talia Tungavailoa as the quarterback, could put up points. And when Talia did go up against Ohio State, he did not fare well. But for Penn State, you have a dominant defense. You've done basically nothing consistently on offense. I'm fascinated by this one. Can Talia Tungavailoa do enough up against what is, the one thing we know about Penn State is they do have a very good defense this year. And then finally, an upset alert to watch. Washington. I'm a big fan of their program. I love Kalen DeBoer. He joins us a lot on CBS Sports Radio. Michael Penix Jr. the last 2 years has been one of the better stories in college football. With that being said, USC had to struggle to win last week. USC lost 2 games this year so far. They're out of the college football playoff picture. They're holding on to try to get into a Pac-12 championship game. We know right now the 2 best teams in the Pac-12 are Washington and Oregon. The reason why this one's intriguing, we know USC's defense stinks, but offensively, they could put up points, and they could put up a ton of points with the combination of Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley. and seeing Washington up against two lesser opponents the last 2 weeks look human and not be encouraging, you know Washington's going to get up for this game, but I'm wondering, can USC get up for this game and create chaos in the Pac-12, where a few weeks ago it was like, oh, Washington has the inside track to get to the college football playoff, and then if they lose that game, even though Washington lost to Oregon, I think the way that we would view it and we would cover it would be different, and maybe we end up getting that collision course of Washington and Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game still, but who knows? I want to see if USC has some fight, even though they're not playing for a national championship anymore, and they're going up against a heck of a Washington team with the College Football Playoff Committee screwed, putting them in at number 5. With what we've seen so far in college football, they should be in the top 4. So that's what I'm looking for this weekend. A lot to look for in college football, where early in the week, I was like, it's kind of an underwhelming weekend, but the more and more you look at it, there are some big storylines there. Andrei Iosivas will join us. Maybe the biggest game of the weekend, Bills and Bengals, Sunday Night Football on NBC. We'll talk to the rookie out of Princeton, who's getting into the end zone quite a few times this year for the Cincinnati Bengals, when the Zach Gelb Show continues after these short messages.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
We continue. This is Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. We're all waiting for that big game this weekend, Sunday Night Football on NBC and Westwood One between the Cincinnati Bengals as they host the Buffalo Bills. And let's go out to the guest line right now. I'm welcoming a man that attended Princeton, was just drafted this past year to the Cincinnati Bengals, 6th pick, 206 overall, 6th-round pick, 206 overall. Now has 2 touchdowns to start off his career, and that's Andrei Iosivas from the Cincinnati Bengals. Andrei, I appreciate the time. Thanks so much for doing this, and how you been?
Of course, yeah. Thanks for having me. I've been good, just preparing for this game on Sunday.
I know that as a player, you sometimes say, oh, it's one game and it's just another game, but this one feels different. This one feels bigger. It's in a primetime spot. Just what are kind of the emotions and the vibes around the facility this week?
Yeah, obviously we're done with the NFC little run that we had, and now we're back into the AFC, and it's against, I would say probably one of our rivals now, or becoming one of our rivals in the AFC. And so it's just going to be a great matchup between 2 powerhouses, and we kind of know what's on the line from this point on going forward.
You guys got off to that slow start. Burrow wasn't 100%. You started off 1-3. Now you're 4-3. Big win last week against the San Francisco 49ers. People are still wondering, who are the Cincinnati Bengals? I said it last week. I thought you guys were back, and I think you guys are heading back into that big-time Super Bowl direction. But what type of team do you think you guys have this year since you're a part of it?
Yeah, it's just a super resilient team, and it's for me, when I'm in the locker room, it feels like a bunch of, it feels like college. Everyone is super nice to each other. Everyone is friends. Everyone is, friendly to each other. And we're really close, and no one really, if you're doing the wrong thing, people will get on you, but it's not like in a toxic way at all. Everyone is super supportive, and we all know what the goal is, and so we always keep our head down and work, make sure everyone's doing the right thing, and hopefully that leads us to the path to the Super Bowl this year.
When you look back at last week with Joe Burrow up against that really talented 49ers defense, and you made that defense look vulnerable, which many teams can't do, what would stand out to you the most when you look back at that performance and what your quarterback was able to do on the field last Sunday?
Yeah, it's pretty indicative of where we're trending. I think he had, I forget his completion percentage, but I think he didn't miss too many passes. So you can see him going through his first and second reads and not being afraid to extend plays for as long as he did. I think there was one play where he scrambled for 9 seconds, and those are the type of things, that X factor, that help you win games on top of the game plan.
And you talked about the scrambling. Late in that fourth quarter, he ran for a first down. It wasn't the 20-yard run, but I think it was like a 10 or 11-yard scramble. And he got up and he showed a lot of energy. I kind of interpreted that as that was Joe Burrow basically telling the rest of the NFL that he's back and the Bengals are back. Did you feel that way as well?
Oh, yeah. We all felt that way. When you see your starting quarterback like that have so much emotion, you see how much those little things mean to him. And, it's good energy all around the facility.
Andrei Iosivas here with us. So this is your rookie season. You did play your college football for Bob Serace at Princeton. How do you kind of look back at that experience at Princeton, and how has it made you the player that we're seeing so far right now in the league?
Yeah, I was blessed to go to Princeton. I didn't have any FBS offers, so Princeton and Dartmouth were my only two. But, it's taught me how to keep my head down and grind and, just be resilient. The path to the NFL from Princeton obviously isn't as clear as maybe going to like an SEC school or Pac-12 or something like that. But, it made me believe in myself, believe in the work that I did. And the experience for me was just great. And it was a great family vibes with all of them. So I couldn't have asked for a better experience, to be honest.
How do you explain your success? Growing up in Hawaii, landed at Princeton, and now in year one in the NFL, not only making the roster, but finding the end zone now twice this year.
I mean, it's been, I'm kind of a guy that lives in the moment. Like I said before with the Princeton stuff, I've always worked really hard to get where I want to be. And so when things come my way, like touchdowns or, getting drafted, it's kind of, I'm obviously super happy, but it's always what I've worked for. So it's not necessarily a surprise and things like that happen to me.
Andrei Iosivas, when you got drafted by the Bengals, 206th overall, 6th-round pick, clearly happy to get drafted, but how do you look back at those emotions, and what were some of the first thoughts that were creeping in your head?
Yeah, I mean, day 1 and 2 were very long. I knew I was going to get drafted on the first day, but there's a possibility of the second, early third day. But, as the day went on, my anxiety kind of ramped up a bit, and not knowing if I was going to be drafted or to a team that drafted to the Bengals, who I was my only 30 visit, official 30 visit. They had drafted Charlie Jones in the 4th round, so I didn't think I was going to go there. But, once they called my name, huge sigh of relief, just knowing that I had the possibility of being on a 53-man roster. And my family was super happy and all my friends were happy. So it was just a weight lifted off my shoulders.
If there's a kid that's getting overlooked right now and not getting highly recruited, what advice would you give to him? Just wondering.
I would just say keep grinding, keep believing in yourself because, you're the only person that's going to believe in you. I remember back quarantine days, I was lifting every day, running routes every day, just thinking that I wanted to go to the league. And I remember someone saying, bro, you want to go to the league? Those guys up there are different. And then I remember in my head, I laughed it off, but I remember thinking in my head that I'm different too. So just keep believing in yourself. And, if it doesn't work out, then at least you can have peace of mind saying that you tried your best.
Well, you say you're different, Andrei Iosivas. You tell me how you envision your career going and what type of player you think you could be in the NFL.
I think I could be a great player that's in the league for a very long time. I never really like to say what I want out loud to other people necessarily, just because those are things like goals that I keep in my head. And I just hope that the work will speak for itself eventually. But just know I want to be a great receiver in the league for a very long time.
You've quickly have come into the league and you've found the end zone twice. You're building trust with Joe Burrow, and you've been in the end zone the last 2 times you guys have been out on the field. How have you quickly been able to earn the trust of Joe Burrow where he goes to you when he's looking to find the end zone?
I think it's just, that the trust has been built from OTAs to camp, seeing me make plays in camp in the preseason, and just being open when my name is called, doing the right thing when my name is called. And obviously if he's looking my way and I'm open, it's going to be hard not to throw the ball to me if we're looking each other right in the eyes in a scramble drill. So I think all of that combined has something to do with it.
Well, by the way, happy belated birthday to you, because the last time I was talking to you, I didn't realize it was your birthday when you had your first career touchdown. But you're going up against the Seahawks. You get that touchdown. Burrow gets you the football. Seemed like that was the perfect birthday, right?
Oh, yeah. That was a birthday birthday moment I'm going to remember forever.
Well, what did that mean to you when Burrow made sure he got you the football?
Yeah, it just showed how much he cares about the game, how much he cares about the little things. There was a flag in the backfield when I caught it. So I thought there's definitely a holding on the offense, so I kind of just threw the ball away. But, you could tell, he was asking the ref for the ball, and you could tell how much he knew it would mean to me if I got the ball, and so I really appreciated that.
You being a youngster, you trying to get a lot of information and build your career, especially in that locker room. You go to a perfect situation, right? We talked about the quarterback, and then you look at your wide receiving room with guys like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. What are some of the things that you've really been able to learn from those 3 wide receivers who have done some pretty big things in this league?
Yeah, just watching them every day in practice, especially in camp when we were competitive during practices. their techniques, what they're thinking when a DB does this or when they see safeties do something else. And pretty much just watching them, to be honest. I ask them for little skill tips here and there about breaks and leverages and things like that. But it's just watching greatness makes you want to be good as well.
When you look at this Bills team, especially their defense, what stands out to you when you get ready for the game coming up on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, they play really hard. I think we can, make some plays on them, to be honest, but we won't dive too deep into that. But they play really hard. They have good DBs. They have an aggressive line, and so we just need to come out, make sure we protect well, and take some shots.
Before we let you run, one of the storylines entering this game clearly is going to be Damar Hamlin. I know you weren't on the Bengals last year, but everyone knows the story and saw what happened last year when these two teams did meet on, I believe it was Monday Night Football in Cincinnati. And then you did guys go on to play and have that playoff game. But when you look back at the whole Damar Hamlin situation, just being a player that's in this league, and I'm sure it was talked about this week in the facility, just how do you recall what happened last year?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a super touchy subject. We haven't really talked about it much in the facility, but, I just wish all the best for Damar when he steps on that field, and I just hope he has peace of mind with that. And that's all I can pretty much say about that.
Andrei Iosivas, appreciate the time. Good luck this week and continue success in your NFL career.
Yep, thank you.
There he is, Andrei Iosivas, joining us from the Cincinnati Bengals before their team gets ready to go up against the Buffalo Bills. Coming up on Sunday Night Football, you can listen to the game on Westwood One, and you could obviously watch it on NBC. And talking about Westwood One, stream the NFL on Westwood One for free, sponsored by AutoZone. All season long, you can listen to every Westwood One broadcast of the NFL live on the NFL app by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports on the Odyssey app. Get in the zone, AutoZone. AutoZone's free battery testing and charging is available for free at your local AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Restrictions apply. Let's get the latest CBS Sports Radio update in with the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
After practicing without Josh Allen earlier the week, the Bills quarterback is good to go. He comes off the injury report, while the Rams will have to wait and see about Matthew Stafford. He's going to be a game-time decision with a sprained thumb. Deshaun Watson took the first-team reps today at practice, an indication that he will likely start on Sunday, while a couple of receivers, Drake London and Curtis Samuel, have both been ruled out. A little more than a week into the NBA season, the intensity ramps up with the first in-season tournament beginning tonight. The month-long event will be played on Tuesdays and Fridays and debuts this evening with specially colored designed courts and all, and group play is first with each team facing the other 4 in the group once. The defending champs have opened the season with wins in 4 of 5, but the schedule doesn't do any favors for head coach Michael Malone.
5 games in 7 nights, 6 and 9 nights, as you just mentioned. So trying to get guys off their feet. And then now as you go home, you're getting ready for a home back-to-back. Dallas Friday, Chicago Saturday, and then New Orleans Monday, and then Golden State Wednesday.
The champs face the unbeaten Mavericks, who are 4-0, but Jason Kidd will not coach tonight due to an illness. I'm Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio is everywhere, Perloff, at home, in your car, and, of course, on your phone and tablet.
Maggie, you can find us on your local affiliate, Sirius XM Channel 158, or the free Odyssey app.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Zach's taking on the most polarizing issues in sports. Which side of the line of scrimmage will he end up on?
Offside. Defense number 69.
It's Onsides, Offsides with Zach Gelb on CBS Sports Radio.
Alrighty, onside, offside time right now on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We do this segment every Monday and Friday. Big Mike, CBS. Moist Mike, CBS. What do we got?
I'm definitely not changing my Twitter handle to that one. After missing it another week.
Did you know this, by the way?
Yeah, tell me.
If you are verified on Twitter now and you change your profile picture, you lose your verification and then you have to get reapproved or you get monitored again if you should be verified. I don't get this stuff anymore.
Well, on Twitter, it doesn't matter how you're verified as long as you pay for it, right? I don't think it matters.
So now, even like everyone pays now for verification, or most people pay for verification. If you go to change your profile picture, you immediately lose the blue check mark, and then they review even if you paid for it, which makes no sense whatsoever. Not that it's a big deal. A lot of things don't make sense with X or Twitter these days, and I don't usually bitch and complain about it, but that makes zero sense to me.
That makes absolutely no sense. If you're paying for it, you should be able to do whatever the hell you want to do, especially if you're putting money into it. But you know what? I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to use it, utilize it until something better comes along.
Yeah, or until they lock you out again for going after me for just giving the obvious take that lasagna is so much better than turkey on Thanksgiving.
I think our poll results seem to
Who
paint a
gave you
different
poll?
picture.
Don't believe it. I don't trust those poll results. You had a bunch of bots that were just voting on that. We all know that.
I know. I hate those bots.
All those Samter Moisty bots were just voting on it.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, 84% of them voting on it against the hate for turkey. But let's go to the actual onside-offside. After missing yet another week of action, Deshaun Watson will start for the Browns this week against the Cardinals. On the season, Watson has passed for 700 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 picks, but he's missed 4 games with injury. So onside-offside, Deshaun Watson can return to Pro Bowl caliber quarterback.
So this one's so difficult because I used to think really highly of Deshaun Watson, the football player, and also used to think very highly of him as a person because we didn't know what was actually going on with Deshaun Watson. And then a lot of those allegations came out, and no one can defend right now Deshaun Watson, the person, nor should you. But Deshaun Watson, the football player, had that it factor when you saw him at Clemson. And then early on with the Texans, even if the team success wasn't always there, he put up monster numbers and did have that year where they made the playoffs. They had the big lead up against the Chiefs, and then they squandered that game away. But the last 2 years, or 3 years, he's been without football because when everything was going on off the field, even before that, he wanted out of Houston. So he missed that entire year, basically missed all of last year besides the final 6 games of the season. And then you did have this year where he's been in and out of the lineup because of injury. When I watch Watson play now, I just don't look at a guy that I feel comfortable giving up all the draft assets that you did and then also the money that you gave him guaranteed and feel inspired that he is going to be one of the better quarterbacks in the league. And what concerns me, even though I still look at him and say, all right, how much could really change in 3 years? He should still be able to find the fountain of youth somewhere, and he still has a lot of good years left. But with that being said, when we start talking about 3 years away, and now next year, because he's not going to do anything that salvages this season in terms of individually, even the Browns are having some success this year, it's going to then go on to year 4 without seeing him at this great level. And I think the further and further you distance yourself and get away from that self, I think it's less likely that you go back to that Pro Bowl form. So you say Deshaun Watson can return to a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback. I just don't believe it. So I'll go offside.
Offside.
Now, the Seahawks travel to Baltimore to face the Ravens on Sunday. Lamar Jackson has been resurgent this year, throwing for 1,700 yards, on pace to shatter his career high in passing yards, but is well behind his pace of 1,000 yards rushing in a season. So onside-offside, through 8 weeks, Lamar Jackson is the NFL MVP.
So you look at the 2 top teams right now in the AFC and the NFC. The Chiefs, I don't think Mahomes is the MVP. Jalen Hurts, he's good, man. Really good. Great. But I don't think he's the MVP right now. Just too many turnovers. So you go around and you look at the other teams. Miami can make the case for Tyreek Hill and Tua Tagovailoa, and I think they'll split votes. But you look around the rest of the league, there's not a lot of great MVP options. And, oh, yeah, there's Lamar Jackson. And with that performance that Lamar Jackson had up against Detroit Lions, it's one of the best individual performances this season. And also you look at the rest of their offense, a lot of underwhelming pieces on that offense. Outside of Mark Andrews and Zay Flowers, they could put Lamar Jackson in a better position to succeed, and still he produces week in and week out. So, yeah, through 8 weeks right now, I would say Lamar Jackson is the MVP. I'll go onside.
Now, after starting 3-1, the Bucs have dropped 3 straight and sit just 3-4. During the losing streak, Baker Mayfield has thrown for 3 touchdowns and 2 picks, but is completing just 58% of his passes. So onside-offside, if Baker struggles again this week against the Texans, the Bucs should start Kyle Trask next game.
I don't need to see Kyle Trask. I don't think Kyle Trask is all that good. You made this commitment for this year to Baker Mayfield, even though Baker is not playing at this great level, clearly. I believe you gut it out and you go through the ups and downs of Baker Mayfield, because you got to remember, you don't need a great quarterback. You don't need a good quarterback to win this division. You just got to be average. And are there moments where Baker Mayfield looks good? Sure. Are there moments where he looks like he's terrible? Yes. But I think you let this thing play out You look at that division. We know the Panthers have no shot at winning that division. The other three teams, it's up in the air. Atlanta making a quarterback change, going to Taylor Heineke. Now we're talking about the Bucs maybe making a quarterback change. Derek Carr played well last week, but there's always a lack of trust with Derek Carr as your quarterback. I think you ride it out with Baker Mayfield, and I would not change quarterbacks, even if he does not play great up against the Texans this week. So you asked me if Baker Mayfield struggles again this week. The Bucs should start Kyle Trask next week. I would go offside on that one.
Offside. Now, we talked about Lamar and the MVP, and obviously QBs usually win that award, but two receivers are having historic seasons in Tyreek Hill and A.J. Brown. Hill is on pace for over 2,100 yards, while Brown, who's also on pace for around 2,000 yards, just set an NFL record with his sixth straight game with 125-plus yards receiving. So onside, offside, A.J. Brown is more valuable to the Eagles than Tyreek Hill is to the Dolphins.
Oh, that's a great question. I would say offside. And the reason why I would go offside is I do believe Jalen Hurts is the better quarterback compared to Tua Tagovailoa. So we all know A.J. Brown is dominant. We all know Tyreek Hill is dominant. But when you look at the quarterbacks, that's the tiebreaker to me. And I do believe that the Eagles could win in other ways because they have Devontae Smith. They have Dallas Goedert. You look around and they have a great offensive line, maybe the best offensive line in the league, and DeAndre Swift's been good for them this year at the running back position. And I understand the Dolphins have Jalen Waddle, who is a phenomenal wide receiver in this league, but because the Eagles have the better quarterback, I think that increases the value of Tyreek Hill compared to A.J. Brown. So you say A.J. Brown is more valuable to the Eagles than Hill is to Miami. It's a great question, Samter. Good job out of you, but I will go offside on that one.
Offsides. Now, Lane Kiffin has Ole Miss ranked 10th in the nation, with their only loss coming on the road against his nemesis Nick Saban in Alabama. Now, the Rebels host Texas A&M this weekend, and Jimbo Fisher, who I know you love, and sit right behind the Tide in the SEC West. So onside, offside, Ole Miss, with their one loss, is a legit playoff contender.
I don't believe they are. And I look at Ole Miss, I give a lot of credit to what Lane Kiffin has done there. But when I see Ole Miss, even if they get, a victory this weekend and they beat A&M, which they're expected to beat A&M, I'm still going to look at Ole Miss and go, I'm going to trust the winner of Alabama and LSU more, even though LSU did go down to Ole Miss this season. But even if Ole Miss finds a way into the SEC championship game, which is possible, especially if Ole Miss wins out and you see Alabama lose this weekend, let's just say, to LSU or even vice versa, I am still going to trust that Georgia is going to beat Ole Miss. And in order to get into the college football playoff for Ole Miss, you're going to have to find a way to beat Georgia in the SEC championship game, and I just don't think that's going to happen. So when you say Ole Miss is a legit playoff contender, they're very good. I just don't believe they'll be in the CFP, so I will go offside.
Offside. Now, speaking of the SEC, Georgia has a brutal schedule coming up, starting with number 12 Missouri this week, followed by
about time. It's been a bunch of cupcake teams for Georgia throughout this year.
It certainly has been. Number 12 Missouri this week, followed by the aforementioned Ole Miss at number 10, then going on the road to Knoxville to face number 17 Tennessee. Onside, offside, Georgia will lose one of these next three games against ranked opponents.
So they got number 12 Missouri this weekend, you said. That's number 10 Ole Miss, and then number 17 Tennessee. I have been impressed, though, with Georgia recently. They're starting to get back in my good graces, especially with the performance that they put up against Florida. I know it's Florida, but without Brock Bowers, people thought that was going to be a little bit of a tight game. I'm not going to pick Georgia to lose until they do so. So when you ask me Georgia will lose one of these next three games, I will, I guess you could say, be a coward and not be bold and not be crazy like most radio hosts are, and I will go offside here.
Offside. To be honest, saying that they're going to go undefeated during that stretch is fairly bold, especially considering how quote-unquote down Georgia has been. But I guess we're still buying them.
But they're kind of like Kansas City, where even when you think they're down, they're not really down. It's just that we look at them at a totally different standard because of how perfect they've been the last 2 years.
Touche. Now, last one. Spurs rookie phenom Victor Wembanyama had looked solid through his first 4 games, but finally broke out last night, dropping 38 points and 10 boards as San Antonio beat the Suns, oddly enough, in back-to-back games in Phoenix, which makes no sense to me. But anyway, onside, offside, Wemby is actually better than you expected he would be based on his high expectations.
Yeah, I don't know what the reason is for that, why they played back-to-back games in Phoenix, but I said that to Samter before the show, and he's like, are you sure of that? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure that they played back-to-back games in Phoenix, so I don't know what the actual reasoning was, but that is a little bit bizarre to say the least. But to get to your question, I always thought Wembanyama, where the hype was, I wondered, like, are we setting this guy up to fail? Because I'm not going to pretend to be an expert here on Victor Wembanyama, because up until these last few games, I've barely seen him play outside of YouTube highlights. So when you had people getting on radio shows and saying or TV shows like Chris Broussard and said that, oh, even if he goes on to be like Hakeem Olajuwon, or if he goes on to be Kevin Durant, his career would be a disappointment. I go, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, and it's absolutely ridiculous. So I thought Wembanyama would be good. I thought he had potential, obviously, with what you've heard, for him to be all-time great. I'm not ready to go there yet and say that he's going to be all-time great, but where the expectations were and where the hype is, you see the signs and you see the ability. So even though he hasn't been sensational night in and night out, I will say he's better than what I expected, because I just didn't know what to expect other than what you've heard from other people. When I've watched him, and I've seen him in person too, just standing next to him, he looks like an alien. And he looks like he is a video game type of character. Defensively, he impacts the entire court. I saw earlier in the year, a few games ago, even though he didn't block Kyrie, he had Kyrie hesitate just because that Wembanyama put his long arms out there. Offensively, he loves the three-point shot, but then you see the athleticism right by the rim as well. I want him to put on more weight, but he seems like he's refusing to do that right now. So I would actually say, yeah, because I didn't know what to expect. Wembanyama is better than expected, because I had no clue what to actually think he was going to do on the court outside of just seeing what others and hearing what others were saying. So Onsides there. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We will take a time out. Football Friday coming on back. Ryan Horvat's going to join us 25 minutes from now for some college football and NFL picks.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All right, we continue. This is Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. It's a football Friday, final hour to play before we go off into the weekend. Hope everyone is getting out of work nice and early. And if you're not, we appreciate you ignoring what you're doing at work or having us on in the background. 855-212-4CBS is always the number to hang. 855-212-4227. You could always give me a follow on Instagram where I'm straight flexing or via the good old cesspool of Twitter at Zach Gelb. Just real quickly, because I'm seeing this now come on out on social media. And I always find these things funny when you have reports of athletes that unfollow their team or scrub their social media profiles with any mention of their team as well. And I guess that's what's going on with George Pickens right now of the Pittsburgh Steelers, where what I did see, and I don't know how you track if he pulled down all of his posts and what he had up before, and if he unfollowed this person, if he unfollowed that person. Those are for other serious journalists that go on those investigations as well. But the one thing that I did see from George Pickens was a post, and he had a picture, and in the bottom right-hand corner, it said, "Free me." George Pickens has to grow up. George Pickens needs to be a professional. And George Pickens, after the performance that he had last night, it is laughable that when you're in a really good organization of the Pittsburgh Steelers, that you would post "free me" on Instagram. Because George Pickens, when I was watching the game last night, and I had you for anytime touchdown at plus 195, all you had to do was drag that second foot and drag that toe, and you would have had a touchdown last night. So it's a bad look for George Pickens when he's saying free me on social media after a win, let me add, and you had what was an easy touchdown and you couldn't get your second foot down where there's a lot of wide receivers that could have got your second foot down. I just don't understand this. And I get it. You're looking for your individual touches. You're looking for your individual catches because eventually that will elevate you to get a new contract down the road. But you're in the league now for 2 years. You have not proven enough yet in this league. And this distraction and this unnecessary post is just flat out ridiculous. It just makes no sense to me. You won. Can you be happy with the team winning? Can you be happy with Deontay Johnson getting in the end zone for the first time in forever? Can you just be happy with that? Can you be happy for your team? And I get it. It was sloppy on offense. It was bad on offense for the most part through the first 3 quarters. And then the fourth quarter, Kenny Pickett, who I don't think is this great quarterback. I said it before. Kenny Pickett's like a mediocre roller coaster ride. But the guy does have 7 game-winning drives in his career. And he got one last night. So to be sitting there now with a 5-3 team, a team that, I get it, has been outgained in every game this season in terms of yards, and you're 5-3, I'm not saying you should be thrilled. I'm not saying you should be jumping up and down as if you're a part of the greatest show on turf with the Rams or the 2007 New England Patriots, or you're playing on the Kansas City Chiefs offense, or you're playing on the Philadelphia Eagles offense from a year ago. Like, I get it. There's reasons to want to see this team be better on the offensive side of the ball, and they need to be better. Because the Steelers' defense is awesome. The Steelers' defense is phenomenal. The Steelers' defense is great. But on the offensive side of the ball, sure, this offense has no identity. This offense has not been impressive. This offense has been disappointing. This offense is the number one reason why the Steelers are not really a threat this year. But for George Pickens, you got to do something if you're going to go out there and say, free me right now. Because it's lame, it's unnecessary, and it's pathetic. That's what it is. Free me. Like, give me a break. I know you didn't get the touches that you wanted last night. I know you want a bigger role. But how about when you have an easy touchdown, you get that second foot down? Instead of complaining on social media today after a win. It's just ridiculous. And the Steelers are a young team on the offensive side of the ball. Kenny Pickett, young. Najee Harris, young. George Pickens, young. But to be immature here and to just be stupid, and that's what George Pickens is being here. It's drama, it's stupid, and it's unnecessary. It's just ridiculous after a win. Now, that's all people are going to talk about from this game, because let's be real. The game last night wasn't the greatest thing I've ever seen. You know, you walk away from that game, Kenny Pickett didn't love what I saw, but he won. Oh, Will Levis looks like he has the potential and he has the tools to be a good quarterback in this league. Oh, Alex Highsmith, surprise, surprise, is great. Oh, TJ Watt, surprise, surprise, is great. But this is what you do on a Friday when you should be getting ready to enjoy a weekend. You played on Thursday. Your team got a W. Like, can't you just be happy for your teammates? Can't you just be happy that the team wins? And to post free me, where the heck are you going? The trade deadline just happened. That's why it's nonsensical. That's why this is just jackassery from George Pickens. It'd be one thing if this is right before the trade deadline and you're trying to accomplish something. But George Pickens has talent. George Pickens is a good wide receiver. I like George Pickens, the football player. And there are some high expectations. Hey, you know, I know nobody cares about my fantasy team, but I drafted you in fantasy football this year. And I believed in you last night to sprinkle some dollars on an anytime touchdown. But to do stuff like this just don't make any sense. Doesn't. And what are you accomplishing? Other than now you're going to have to answer for it Now it's become a distraction. You know they're not going to cut you. That would just be the definition of being stupid. And also, you can't get traded anywhere because the trade deadline has already passed. So this is just something to be done, but nothing's actually going to happen outside of now people are going to give you attention, George Pickens. Like, give me a break. Just so dumb. And what fires me up is when, and this is when I go after people, college football coaches, NFL coaches, NFL players, whatever it is. In life, when something doesn't go your way, and you are a part of the problem, and you take no accountability, I just can't let that go. It'd be one thing if George Pickens took some accountability. But I had Colin Dunlap, who's a talk show host in Pittsburgh. He said, I guarantee you, at some point this year, there will be a game where one of either Deontay Johnson or George Pickens aren't happy with their targets because the other one shined and this one didn't, and then they're going to complain about it on social media. He said it was inevitable, and he was absolutely right. And here we are where Deontay Johnson shines, and then George Pickens goes, oh, I'm not happy. And there's reasons to be unhappy. Like, I could understand wanting more. Matt Canada's not a good offensive coordinator, and Kenny Pickett's not a good quarterback right now. But once again, you won the game. You just won the game. Does that matter anymore? Or is it how many stats or how many yards and how many touchdowns you get? And you know what? How about you take some accountability, George Pickens? Because you had a touchdown. And we all know if you got that second foot down and you had a touchdown, I don't think we're getting the free me thing here. But is that on you? Or is that on the team? And the team could put you in a better position, but in that individual play, it's on you. Because there was a lot of ground there. There was a lot of grass turf there. And all you had to do was get that second toe down, and you didn't. So don't get on social media today. Don't get on social media and go, oh, free me. It's just nonsense. And I feel bad for his teammates. Like, you look at the Steelers. This team is not great. You know, Mike Tomlin always finds a way to work his magic and get this team in the playoffs and get this team above 500. And when you have a team that's 5-3 that you know is not that great, I don't want to hear from a player who did nothing in the game, and when you asked him to go catch a touchdown, he dropped the touchdown. It's just ridiculous. So I didn't expect to go on a 10-minute tangent about that and a rant about that, but I'm seeing it during the break on Bro Bible. That's where I'm seeing it. Dove Kleiman. George Pickens deletes all Steelers posts, writes free me on social media. Come on, dude. That's what we're doing here? That's what we're going to do because you're not happy with your production? How about you look yourself in the mirror? Because last night, George Pickens' stat line, two catches, -1 yards, targeted 5 times in the game. So sure, should he be targeted more? Yeah. But why are you complaining when you dropped an easy touchdown and your team won the game? So that's the latest with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you know what, Stu? You know this. you being a part of the Raider fan base and Raider Nation, you once got a disgruntled Steeler wide receiver where a lot of people at the time when you acquired Antonio Clown Brown, a lot of people were saying, wow, how did Mike Tomlin give him up for nothing? Oh, that's a bad job. And then right after that, what did transpire? You had Antonio Brown be Antonio Brown. Everyone's like, wow, I give a lot of credit to Mike Tomlin for the way that he handled Antonio Brown in Pittsburgh. And I'm not comparing George Pickens to Antonio Brown. Let me be abundantly clear. That would be so unfair to George Pickens. But if George Pickens thinks anything is going to come out of him posting free me, like, come on. Stu, you know it. Mike Tomlin has dealt with a whole lot worse.
Yeah, he has before for sure. And even Martavis Bryant's another one that was kind of, at times, a little off the wall, I would say.
Yeah.
A tiny bit. Yeah, he's used to it. And this is just the latest of something that Tomlin has to deal with.
Which is kind of funny with the topic now that we're going to discuss after we just trashed George Pickens for 10 minutes. Now let's get into quarterbacks that have something to prove the rest of the way and which quarterbacks we don't believe in. Let's start with Kenny Pickett. Yeah, I don't believe in Kenny Pickett. And maybe that is more... here's what I wonder, Stu, and also Santer. Do you think George Pickens is more mad at his quarterback, or is it the play caller? Because the easy person to go after here has been Matt Canada. And Matt Canada is definitely not a popular person in Pittsburgh. They were chanting Fire Canada at the Penguins game when the NHL season did start. And there's no doubt about it that Matt Canada is not a good offensive coordinator. But then you watch the game last night, really outside of the fourth quarter, Kenny Pickett didn't play all that great, but neither did George Pickens. Like George Pickens, he dropped the football that he should have caught. So I really do wonder if we talk to George Pickens, where he's not going to take any accountability and he's not going to take any blame. I do wonder if he's more mad at Matt Canada or if he's more mad at Kenny Pickett. That's what I wonder here, Stu and Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it always kind of falls on the quarterback's shoulders because, Matt Canada, as bad as he might be, he calls the play, and if Pickens is open, it's on the quarterback to get him open, or to get him the ball. So I think it's probably more about Pickett than it is about Canada. But first of all, I understand that, you can't choose when you're pissed off, but why are you saying free me, and you mentioned this, 2 days after the trade deadline? Right? Yeah. If you wanted to be freed, do this like last week. Don't do it, because now it's just going to be awkward. Now there's nothing they can do. They're not going to cut the guy. They can't trade him anywhere. So at least before he was disgruntled and they're like, you know what, screw it, he's not worth the headache. We'll get some assets for him because somebody wants him. Now it's just awkward. Now he just walks into the locker room and it's just awkward. Not just because he's calling out Kenny Pickett or Canada, but like
there's no resolution.
Deontay Johnson hadn't scored a touchdown in 2 years. And he's sitting on the bench sulking like a little clown, and Deontay Johnson smiling and happy and dancing around, and there's Pickens.
It takes away from the win. It takes away from the win. And that's why I'd be annoyed today if I'm a member of the Steelers, because you're supposed to be enjoying this weekend, and now you're going to have all these people reaching out to you and talking about George Pickens instead of talking about the victory.
It really is amazing how Mike Tomlin finds receiver after receiver after receiver after receiver, and every single one of them turns out to be disgruntled in some way. Every single time.
Yeah, it is really wild. Andrew Filipponi, by the way, the Pony Express, who does some shows here on CBS Sports Radio. How do you say the Steelers insider name? I know he's been around for a while. Is it Mark Caboli? How do you say it? Does anyone know?
Not positive.
Okay. Well, I don't think it matters here. But anyway, longtime Steelers insider Mark Caboli, Caboli, however you say his name, just said this on 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh. He thinks George Pickens is more frustrated with Kenny Pickett than the play calling or scheming of this offense. So you're right, Samter, in your assumption that it's more so Pickett than it is Canada, that George Pickens, that's a big tongue twister right there with Pickett and Pickens. He thinks that Pickens is more frustrated with Pickett right now than it is the offensive scheme or it's the play calling. And all I'll say is, George, I hear you. George, I understand that Kenny Pickett could be better, but you could be better as well. And that's also the irony of this. You have a second-year player. Both of these guys are second-year players. Both of these guys have shown some flashes, and both of these guys have struggled. And for George Pickens, if it was one of the games where you were just open and they didn't find you the entire time, all right, maybe you have a legitimate gripe. And there's better ways to take care of this than the way that he did. But for the 9,000th time in this segment, when you dropped the ball or you couldn't get your foot down in the end zone, I don't want to hear it from you. And it wasn't as if it was a difficult play. All you had to do was drag that foot, and you didn't do so. So just to quickly get back to what we originally were supposed to talk about in this topic before I just sounded off and erupted like I was a volcano, quarterback's something to prove the rest of the way. Real quickly, Jordan Love, I don't believe in him, but he's got to give you something tangible at the end of the year that makes you suggest that he could be the quarterback and should be the guy for the rest of the time with the Packers and at least get you excited for Packers football next year. Russell Wilson, it's weird. Russ has been playing good halves. You get a big win last week up against Kansas City. I don't believe that Sean Payton believes in Russell Wilson anymore, and the only thing that may keep him around in Denver next year is his contract. Deshaun Watson, he's got to stay healthy first, and you have a team that is good right now in the Cleveland Browns, and for Deshaun Watson, I don't want to hear any more excuses because rust, whatever it is, when you get back, you're back, and you have a team that's pretty damn good and has won without you. For Kenny Pickett, he's got to show me that it could be more of the guy. Because right now, yeah, you have 7 game-winning drives in your young career to your name, but with that being said, I don't think anyone looks at him like he's on the verge of becoming this really good quarterback for a long time in this league. Dak Prescott, very good quarterback, has been a very good quarterback for a long time. He has not been a great quarterback. Big game this weekend up against the Philadelphia Eagles, and Dak's got to show me that bare minimum he could get to an NFC title game this year, something the Cowboys haven't done since the 1995 regular season where they won the Super Bowl. Sam Howell, some good moments, some bad moments, dinks and dunks down the field. I believe that the Commanders are totally going to change their organization after this year with Josh Harris coming in. But I think Sam Howell actually will be the starting quarterback next year for the Commanders because they're still building, and there's a lot of other areas on this team outside of Terry McLaurin, Daron Payne, and Jahan Dotson, and Brian Robinson Jr., that you got to continue to build. There's a lot of other holes. So I think you build first, and then you go find the quarterback is the way that the Commanders are going to take care of it, unless they have a great draft position or a big-time name becomes available via trade. Daniel Jones, I don't think there's much that he could do. He has the contract attached to him, but I don't think he's all that good. There's a lot of pressure on Brock Purdy. He's got to show me that he can go win a Super Bowl this year. I know that's a big ask, but we've seen some really good out of Brock Purdy. And then the last 3 weeks with guys get hurt, I know Debo's coming back, and he made that clear on social media the other day. When you see McCaffrey not at 100%, even though he keeps on getting in the end zone, when you see Trent Williams off the field and Debo off the field, Brock Purdy makes mistakes because right now Brock Purdy's a system quarterback and not a franchise quarterback. And then finally, Kyler Murray, he's got to show me that he belongs in Arizona. Ultimately, the draft pick will determine if he's going to be back next year because if they can get Caleb Williams, I think Kyler Murray is gone with the Cardinals. And for Justin Fields and Mac Jones, I don't think either of those guys are going to be back with their current team this year. Mac Jones already a wrap in New England. For Justin Fields, yeah, you could say it comes down to draft position, but they're going to be in a good spot inside the top 5 of the draft with the 2 draft picks that they have via the Carolina Panthers trade to get the Panthers Bryce Young. So I think Fields could succeed elsewhere, but I don't think he's going to succeed in Chicago. I think that ship has sailed. All right, we'll talk to Ryan Horvat next from BetMGM tonight. This is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, we continue. This is Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. Let's go out to the guest line right now. Welcome in from BetMGM tonight via BetQL. He joins us each and every football Friday here on CBS Sports Radio right at 5:20 p.m. Eastern, 2:20 p.m. Pacific. He is Ryan Horvat. Ryan, appreciate the time as always. How you been, my friend?
Doing good, Zach. Getting excited for a big weekend of college football, a really good slate of NFL football, which is going to kick off, obviously, with the game of the week early Sunday morning. A little jealous. You had any cheesesteaks yet?
I have not had a cheesesteak yet. I got here this afternoon, came right here to get ready to work because it's a serious football Friday. I did have some tasty cakes. Only one packaging of tasty cakes so far, but there is a shelf of all these free tasty cakes, and I'm definitely going to take a few home once I do get on out of here. But I have to ask you this. How are you doing? I heard everyone in the Horvat family is sick these days right now.
Yeah, everybody had the stomach flu. It was brutal, actually, for like a week straight. Feeling a little bit better finally now. I'm a little nasally, but feeling a little bit better. So actually have some tickets for Penn State's in town. So the Maryland-Penn State game. And I bet Maryland actually pretty good in that spot, man. Don't feel really good about Penn State. And I know you're a little bit of a hater, so that probably makes you happy. I don't know if I'm going to go to the game.
I'm not a hater. I'm just realistic. That program should have a higher standard than James Franklin just handing out participation trophies after they beat Indiana. And when they lose to Ohio State, he goes, "Oh, I'm happy with the way that we competed up against one of the best teams in the country. I can't say that we didn't see the two best teams in the country." It's just ridiculous. The guy's in year 10. Like, have a higher standard now.
No, you're so right, man. And like, we hyped up Drew Aller, and you know, he's still young, but my problem with that team, the offensive line, like you have Katron Allen, you have Nicholas Singleton, and neither are averaging at least 5 yards per carry, two explosive backs, and they can't create anything right now on offense. It hasn't been good for Penn State, but I don't know if I'm going to go to the game. We have too many good matchups this weekend, man. I feel like it's a perfect couch weekend.
By the way, he just got me so fired up. I almost ripped up my parking voucher, so I get free parking here at WIP, and George Pickens got me fired up as well. All right, let's get to these games. Ryan Horvat here with us. Washington and USC. Washington struggled the last 2 weeks, but they still have won. USC has been disappointing, already have 2 losses on the season. The Washington Huskies are only a 3-point favorite on the road. Is this kind of upset alert where USC is the team that a lot of other people thought they were going to be before the season commenced?
Yeah, this is one where, I really like this Washington program. I really like Kalen DeBoer, and I know they were dealing with the flu last week. That's what he said, right? But their last 4 wins have all been really close after 4 blowout, wins. All 4 games have been close the last month of the season. And Washington's offense, obviously, they're going to have the advantage over the USC defense. They're a top 10 offense. Michael Penix right now, one of the favorites to win the Heisman. But if you look at the last 2 weeks for Michael Penix, he took some really big hits against Oregon. And then since then, 3 picks in the last 2 weeks. He's only completing 60% of his passes. And the ground game just really hasn't been there all season for Washington. They lost their stud back before we even got to week 1. And right now, I worry a little bit about them being one-dimensional in this game, even against this USC defense, which the last 5 weeks, they're giving up 43 points per game, over 460 yards per game. But I feel like this is a good buy low spot for USC and for Caleb Williams. They're going to have to show something in this game. I think it's going to be a shootout. I couldn't bet the under in this game. I think USC at least finds a way to keep this game close. I think somebody's going to clip Washington here the next couple weeks. That Pac-12 championship rematch against Oregon seems a little too good to be true. So give me USC, even though that defense hasn't shown us anything all season long. I think they at least keep this game within a field goal.
Here is the toughest game, I think, to bet on this weekend, and I have no feel. So that's why I'm going to you for a side on this. LSU, Alabama. Alabama last week, or 2 weeks ago, they looked dead up against Tennessee. Then they played a great second half, and they saved their season. Their defense is really good, and Milroe has been inconsistent. LSU, their offense is awesome, but they've already had 2 losses, and their defense has been so disappointing this year. Alabama is at home. Vegas thinks this is an even game because Vegas only has the Crimson Tide at home as a 3-point favorite. If you had to take a side here, LSU, Alabama, where do you go?
All right, I played this 2 different ways because game of the year, you could have had LSU over a touchdown. You could have had them even, there were some 8s available, 8.5, I think, maybe at some shops. But now that we're down to 3, now that we're down to a field goal, and LSU is such a trendy pick, I know they're also a sharp pick. I like Alabama in this spot. I'm a Notre Dame fan, and I can tell you the games where I like Brian Kelly, and I can tell you the games where I think he's going to have circles coached around him. And I worry a little bit when he's going against the GOAT here, Nick Saban. And Alabama, man, so I think there's 2 different ways you could actually play this game, right? If you like the side, if you like LSU, don't only play LSU to win this game outright or take the points. Play Jaden Daniels. You're getting better than a 3-1 price right now to win the Heisman. Look what happened when Texas beat Alabama. Quinn Ewers jumped everybody, and he was the Heisman favorite. Jaden Daniels, the only knock is the 2 losses this season, and you really can't knock them for the Florida State game. They had a 3-point lead, kind of fell apart, but it's all because of the defense, and that's why I actually like Alabama in the game. If you like Alabama, maybe take a shot 14-1 for them to win the college football playoff. I don't think you'll ever get that price with Bama ever again. If you like LSU, play some Daniels Heisman futures. Reason I like Bama, if this game's a shootout, they're actually figuring some things out right now on the offensive side of the ball. Milroe could hit the deep pass. They're figuring out the run game a little bit. The offensive line's still a big concern, but LSU hasn't shown us anything on defense. They're giving up a bunch of explosive runs, a bunch of explosive passes. I actually like Alabama now that we're all the way down to 3, but I do think there's a couple different angles. If you like LSU, like I said, I like the Daniels Heisman props for futures. And if you like Bama, man, a 1-loss Bama team, if they go to the SEC championship game and they win that game, they're getting into the playoff. And like I said, You're never getting the price with them again, man.
All right, last college game, Ryan Horvat. So I look at 2 spreads this weekend. I have no reason to trust Jimbo Fisher this year. I have no reason to trust Dabo Swinney. But with that being said, Ole Miss is only a 3-point favorite against A&M. Seems fishy. And Notre Dame on the road is only a 3-point favorite up against Clemson. Seems fishy. Are those fishy spreads when you look at them, or do you take the favorite in both of these?
Yeah, I think both are a little fishy here. If I have to take a favorite, I'm going to go with Ole Miss. What concerns me is with A&M, there's a bunch of 5 stars on that roster. Defensively, again, like you could hit them with explosive plays, but the defensive line does have a bunch of talent. I don't trust Max Johnson. If it's Connor Wegman behind center for Texas A&M, I'd probably like them a little bit more in this matchup. But Lane's historically done pretty good against Jimbo. So if I have to go favorite, I'm going to go Ole Miss. I did bet Clemson. I'm a Notre Dame fan. You have right now Dabo getting angry on his call-in show, calling guys out. And I kind of so I agree, though. I mean, I'm not a Dabo guy whatsoever. He has to embrace the times. You have to use the transfer portal. You have to pay guys in NIL. But, I mean, if you look at their losses, their 4 losses this season, they're all close losses, and they could have all been wins. Like, you lose to Florida State, you could have went up 2 scores in that game. They've had really bad turnover luck, bad field goal luck. They still have the talent, though. And with Notre Dame, what scares me, offensively, I love Sam Hartman, but I don't love the wide receiver room. Their best wide receiver is a converted running back, and now they lose Mitchell Evans for the rest of the season. Their stud tight end. He has 11 more receptions than anybody else on that roster. So I like Clemson. Perfect buy low spot here, +3.
All right, let's cue the music, and we'll get to our NFL picks. I did win the week last week, so I have a week advantage on Ryan Horvat as we make our trek through the regular season. Horvat, though, I'll let you go first. What do you got cooking in the NFL right out of the gate?
All right, I got 2 because I got a bonus pick here because we're going sides against each other, but I'm going to throw out a total. Dallas Cowboys, we're going to go with the first half over 22.5, and I like the Cowboys to cover the 3. Reason being, Jalen Hurts is banged up right now. Now he goes against the Dallas Cowboys, who are a top 3 team as far as pass rush win rate. They have Micah Parsons. That defense, they skipped a beat a couple weeks ago when they did lose Trayvon Diggs, but since then, the secondary's been much better. Stephon Gilmore looks really good. He looks like he kind of did back in 2019. But Dallas, I really like what they did last week. They came out and they threw the ball on early downs, and that's how you have success against Philly. Philly's really good defending the run on those early downs. They can't defend the early passes, and I think this could be a big CeeDee Lamb game. I like the Eagles defensively, but they've really struggled to replace Gardner Johnson, and you could attack them through the slot. So I think Dallas keeps it close. I think it's going to be a higher scoring game, but I think a lot of the points come in the first half. So I'll go Cowboys +3, first half over 22.5.
All righty, let me get to my first pick. I will look at the Colts and Panthers game. This is supposed to be an ugly game. It will be an ugly game. Panthers, I told you last week, we're going to get their first win of the season. They did so. I now think the Panthers lose this week, but they'll bounce back next week. Short week, Thursday Night Football to start off week 10. That would be between the Carolina Panthers and the Chicago Bears. Man, I feel bad for Al Michaels. Oh, wait, no, I don't. He's getting paid a whole lot of money to broadcast those games. But in this one, Colts and Panthers, I will take the Indianapolis Colts laying the 2.5 points. Slap the mustache on my face. I'm going with Gardner Minshew in this one.
No, I really like the Colts too, man. It's funny. The Colts, offensively, they've been so good this season. I mean, one of the higher scoring teams in the league, the Colts this season. So I kind of like the over in that game. I'm going to actually take another kind of, buy low spot here with the Buffalo Bills. They haven't been really good on the defensive side of the ball. Von Miller, since he's came back, he's played over 75 snaps now, 79 snaps here, and he's only got pressure on 3 of them. I'm not saying he's washed. He's coming off a pretty devastating injury. I'm a little worried about the Bills on the defensive side of the ball, but I do like the Rasul Douglas trade because they lose Trey White, their best cover corner. Yeah, I like their safeties. I like Poyer. I like Micah Hyde, but they're both in their 30s. But on the offensive side of the ball, this is why I like the Bills this week. I think they're going to be able to take advantage of that Bengals secondary. I hate to see an injury, but Dawson Knox getting hurt kind of opens some things up for the Bills. Now they're using more 11 personnel, more 3 and 4 wide receiver sets. They're finally using Dalton Kincaid. Josh Allen's using his legs once again. Every press conference, every after practice interview this week, he said he feels really comfortable now once again in this offense. So I like the Bills against the Bengals here, and I also like the over in that game as well, especially in the first half, over 23.5.
All righty, here's my next pick, Seahawks and the Ravens. Ryan Horvat here with us, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio on a Football Friday. I am going to plus the points here. I don't know who's going to win between the Seahawks and the Ravens. I think 6 points, though, is too rich, so I will take the Seattle Seahawks, who are a heck of a football team, going up against the Ravens, who are another heck of a football team. They're kind of similar. Like what the Seahawks are or what the Ravens are when you look inside their conference. 2 teams that we all know are good, but people wonder how good they are with a lot of talent. Ravens on the defense side of the ball, the Seahawks have the talent on the offense side of the ball. That Seahawks secondary has been really good when you look at some of the stars that are breaking out, those young stars that are breaking out. It's just 6 points. This feels like it's going to be a 3 or 4 point game that comes down right to the end. I think Seattle's too good of a team to get blown out here. So give me the Seattle Seahawks plus the 6 points.
Yeah, I like Seattle a lot in this spot, too. Bonus pick, I like the under in KC Miami early morning on Sunday at 51. Everybody's going to take the over. Two great offenses, but I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. I think the Dolphins are actually going to trend a little bit better here defensively now, getting all their pieces back in that secondary. You saw it last week with Jalen Ramsey. He had an interception. Short little breakdown for you. I like the Texans, actually, 2.5-point favorites at home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I just think Tampa, they got off to a nice little start. They're coming back down to earth. They can't really run the football. And I like what the Texans are doing on the defensive side of the ball with Will Anderson and all those pass rushers. They're all rotating right now. And C.J. Stroud, I was a big fan out of Ohio State. And that offense looks a little bit better than I thought. I know that they're coming off a loss. I think they bounce back at home. It's an ugly one, I know. I like the Texans. Anything under a field goal against Tampa.
And then finally, my last pick. You mentioned that Dolphins-Chiefs game. I think Vegas this week is begging you to lay the 1.5 with Kansas City. I will trust the Dolphins offense right now, clearly more than the Chiefs offense, which has some work to do. I know the Chiefs defense has been underrated all year and people aren't giving them enough credit, but I like the Dolphins plus 1.5. I do think they win the game outright. So here are the picks in week 9. Horvat, I know, gave you a lot of bonus plays, but just on the spreads, he went Cowboys plus 3, Bills plus 2.5, and the Texans minus 3, if I got that right. And I'm going with the Colts laying 2.5, the Seahawks plus 6, and the Dolphins plus 1.5. I got your 3 picks right, correct, Horvat?
You did. I threw in the bonus picks in case I go 0-3. That way, people are like, hey, at least this guy wins. We'll tune into his show on Saturdays and Monday through Friday as well.
Well, here's what I know. Even if you go 0-5, 0-6, you will definitely throw me under the bus, and you'll be like George Pickens. You'll be putting out on Instagram, free me from the Zach Gelb show, and taking no accountability for your actions.
Never. I would never do that. I'm a team player around here. I'm a player's coach. If it's a bad performance, if it's a great performance. How about one more bonus pick, Zach? It can't get any worse. It can't get any worse for the Green Bay Packers. Brett Rippon, most likely getting the start for the Rams behind that offensive line. Rashawn Gary just got paid. He's going to have 2 sacks in this game. Matt LaFleur, I just saw this quote 45 minutes ago. I would love to believe him. He says, Aaron Jones, the leash is off. We're going to use him this week. Aaron Jones is going to score a touchdown. The Packers are going to beat the Rams by at least 3 points. I guarantee it.
All righty. Ryan Horvat, thanks so much. We'll do it again next week.
Thanks, Zach.
There he is, Ryan Horvat from BetMGM tonight via BetQL. We'll wrap up shop on a Football Friday when the Zach Gelb Show returns after these short messages. We'll give you some odds on the next Raiders head coach and also the next coach to get fired. What a way to go off into the weekend discussing who's going to get the Raiders job and then who's going to be the next coach that gets handed a pink slip. But first up with the latest CBS Sports Radio update, here he is, the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, the NBA will feature first tonight. The inaugural NBA in-season tournament tips off with the winner to be crowned in Las Vegas in a little over a month from now. Group play begins this evening with each team facing the 4 other teams in the same group once. The Bucks will host the Knicks. Milwaukee has split its first 4 games under new head coach Adrian Griffin. They're also incorporating new addition Damian Lillard, and Giannis Antetokounmpo said they are a work in progress.
We are not there yet. We got to keep on coming together as a team. We've got to keep on working on us. Everything sounds nice, but at the end of the day, we got to play the game. And right now, in the first 4 games, we're average. We're not exactly where we want to be.
Defending champion Denver will host 4-0 Dallas, though Jason Kidd is ill and won't coach tonight. Josh Allen is off the Bills injury report and good to go this Sunday, but Matthew Stafford will be a game-time decision due to a sprained thumb, and Deshaun Watson likely to start for the Browns after working with the first team today. 3-time Cy Young Award winner Clayton Kershaw had surgery on his left shoulder. He's hopeful of pitching next summer. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Looking for CBS Sports Radio online? Your favorite hosts and the best sports content and entertainment are available 24/7 on social media and YouTube and in the palm of your hand with the free Odyssey app.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Rock your body. Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick from the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. Final segment of the week on a football Friday. And it's time to answer our Ask the Pros question of the day. And it's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts, our friend Sully in Las Vegas. We know that guy. He says, Zach, who do you think will be the next Raiders head coach? You could submit a question by tweeting at CBS Sports Radio or at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB, using the hashtag AskThePros. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. All righty, in terms of the Steelers' next coach, I said earlier in the week that if I was Mark Davis, if I was advising Mark Davis, not who is actually advising him right now, which is laughable that it's Jim Gray. As I heard that earlier in the week when Amy Trask was on with Maggie and Perloff, that Jim Gray is advising Mark Davis, which it's why the Raiders are the Raiders, simply said. I would advise Jim Harbaugh. I would advise Lou Anarumo. And then also Ben Johnson of the Lions. Those would be the three names. Those would be the three names I would say to Mark Davis. Now, looking at the odds, Ben Johnson's plus 350. Ron Rivera is plus 400. Which, if Rivera gets fired by the Commanders, then hired by the Raiders, that would just be a dumb move by the Raiders. Frank Smith, who's the Dolphins offensive coordinator, at plus 425. Jim Harbaugh is at plus 750. Dan Quinn at plus 850. Raheem Morris, the Rams DC's at plus 1,000. Coach Prime, Deion Sanders at plus 1,200. You guys want to chuckle? You want to hear who's at plus 2,500? Urban Meyer. Who in their sane mind would bet that at plus 2,500? That's one of the worst NFL head coaches of all time. How do they come up with, how does Vegas even think to put that up there? Is that just Vegas thinking, Stu, oh, someone will bet it just because it's so stupid that it can't happen? Maybe we'll think that they'll end up knowing something that we know that is not going to happen and getting suckers to end up betting that. That's the only justification that I have on that one, Stu.
Yeah, it's the Raiders. Maybe someone will think, oh, the Raiders will do something stupid, which they will, but not that stupid.
Stu, what would your reaction be? Breaking news. Adam Schefter reports the next head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders is Urban Meyer.
I mean,
you would retire from Raiders fandom, right?
I was just thinking, I'm like, I don't know if I can give up on this team, but that might do it right there. Urban Meyer might actually do it.
So one of the names I suggested, Lou Anarumo, was not on this odd sheet, which is odd to me. I'm going to actually say that he gets the job right now. I'm going to say it's Lou Anarumo. If I had to put it in order of preference, I would say Jim Harbaugh 1, Anarumo 2, and then Ben Johnson in at number 3. Now, here is a great way to end the show on a Friday, because this is what everyone wants to talk about. This sends you into the weekend on a feel-good Friday, everyone feeling all optimistic. Which NFL head coach will be fired next? That's a real positive Friday topic. Ron Rivera is at plus 200. Matt Eberflus is at plus 300. Matt LaFleur is at plus 700. Brandon Staley, wow, only plus 900. Those are some pretty damn good odds. Todd Bowles at plus 1,000. Dennis Allen at plus 1,500. And then Mike Vrabel at plus 2,000. So Ron Rivera would be my pick, and he is the favorite. Would not surprise me if the Bears try to get a jump start and start to usher in a new era, or try to do that with Matt Eberflus. I think he's gone at the end of the year. LaFleur will be back next year. There's no way Gutekunst is going to get rid of either LaFleur or Jordan Love after this season. They're going to give him next year as well. Brandon Staley at plus 900. Yeah, he's definitely gone at the end of this year. Because even if the Chargers make the playoffs and they lose that playoff game, and it's still a tough task to even get them into the playoffs, which is crazy with the talent that they have, I think it's going to be very tough for Brandon Staley to keep his job. And now, after seeing McDaniels get fired, and he had 4 remaining years on his contract after this season, it's only 1 remaining year for Brandon Staley. Usually the industry standard is 5 for a first-time head coach or any head coach. usually get 5 years as a head coaching contract, but I read that Brandon Staley only was a 4-year deal, and he is already in year number 3 as well. Todd Bowles, they don't make the playoffs. I think he gets fired. Dennis Allen, Saints are now starting to trend in the right direction. I think he'll be back for another year, but I would not be a lock on that one, and there's no way that Mike Vrabel is going to get fired. So I would say the most likely to be fired next would be Ron Rivera, because it's already sealed, signed, delivered that he's going to be gone after this year. After that, I would say Staley would be my second pick, and then Matt Eberflus would be my third pick for which NFL head coaches are going to be fired next. That is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio on a Football Friday. Really fun show today, as we did go all around the NFL. We recapped that Steelers and Titans game from last night. You walked away feeling solid about Will Levis, even in a loss, and Kenny Pickett, he won, but you're like, too many inconsistencies with him. Big weekend of football coming up on Sunday. Obviously at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, you have the Dolphins and the Chiefs. Then later throughout the day, 4:25 p.m. Eastern, Cowboys and the Eagles. And the Sunday night game, a big one between the Bills and the Bengals. And rookie wide receivers had touchdowns in back-to-back games. Andrei Iosivas from Cincinnati via Princeton. And he did grow up in Hawaii. He joined us earlier on the show at 4:20 p.m. Eastern, 1:20 p.m. Pacific, and we got some good college football this weekend as well. A surprising slate. You have the big game between LSU and Alabama. You got Georgia and Missouri, but there's some other intriguing games as well, like Washington, USC. We'll see if USC is able to pull off the upset against the Huskies this weekend. Big thanks to Stuart Kovacs, Michael Samter as well, everyone here in Philadelphia for hosting me today at Sports Radio 94 WIP. I'll be on Eye on Football for 8 hours on Sunday, and we'll talk to you Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. We out. Bye-bye.